Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 276 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield. I'm the host of the show, and we have a very special episode today. We have Matt, of course, but we also have a very special guest. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
This is Steve Charles. He pledged at our highest tier last month, and when he did, he said that he thought he was going to come to LA. And basically, the tier that he pledged at is called GameFace Guest. And how it's kind of set up is that we would basically sit with you on a Zoom call or whatever and have a discussion and then run it in the show. However, he was going to be in Los Angeles, and so he's like, maybe I could come in and do it live. And here he is. Yeah. And look, just so you guys know, he's vaxxed up. We've all checked the vax cards and everything. We're being safe about this.
Yes.
And he also just had a test when he left Canada. He's from Montreal, right?
Yep. Montreal, Canada.
Yep. And why are you here in LA?
I'm promoting my liquor. I'm the owner of LS Cream Liquor, which is basically a better tasting Baileys. That's how I call it. But seriously, this is my grandmother's recipe. And basically, we used to drink this when we were
When you're
okay, I'm not going to put my parents in. But my family's from Haiti, and there's something else called crémasse, and we do it at home during the holidays. And I used to see my mom, my aunts, and my grandmother do this. So people around will always come see us and like, oh my God, can you ask your mom or your grandmother to do some for us for the holidays? And I thought to myself, older, what if we took the taste of crémasse and we put it in the form of a traditional cream liquor? And LS Cream was born, which is basically my initials and my grandmother's initials mixed together. And yeah, we're distributed around the United States. We actually ship in 33 states. We are in stores in 10 states, and of course in Canada also at the SAQ. And yeah, we won medals for this, and yeah, we're pretty happy. We got a big investor last year. Things are looking up.
That's awesome. And actually, we are all drinking it here today. This might be the first time we've ever drank alcohol on GameFace.
I think so.
Hey, there's a first time for everything, right?
So cheers to Steve.
Hey, cheers.
Montreal.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Yeah. And cheers to you. And cheers to GameFace.
I think
And it tastes like Baileys.
You guys like it, huh?
Yeah.
It's good.
Tasty.
It's,
You also got your pitch down.
Yeah, of course.
And that's what you're here to do, right? You're here to pitch it to restaurants and bars and investors.
Yep.
And...
So I have contacts here that bring me around. I'm actually going to a cigar lounge later.
Oh.
So I go to stores.
It is tasty. I want to keep drinking it, but I'm afraid I'll get hammered by the end.
No, don't worry. I'm sure you'll be fine. It's 17%.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just going around.
You don't understand what I got going on here, man.
A lot
it's
of
only 17% to you. I'm running a TriCaster and hosting a show at the same time. It can get dirty real fast.
But I'm just here promoting the brand, visiting accounts. We actually have one store now. It's in West Hollywood. It's called Melon Rose that carry the product. But I'm here to open more. And that's basically it.
Yeah.
I get
Steve.
wine there.
Oh, at Melon Rose?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Now, Steve, you're obviously also a huge gamer, right?
Of course. That's the reason why I'm here.
Yeah. And you had worked, you told us before we went on air that you had worked at Ubisoft for a while, working in the mobile side of Ubisoft.
Yeah. I was at Ubisoft Quebec. At the time, they just opened a new office. It was for Longtail Studios, which was aside from Gameloft, and of course, Gameloft is a side of Ubisoft. But yeah, I was a producer there. I was young. I was 24 years old, 23 or 24, whatever. Just got out of college. They approached me, and they liked my knowledge of the games, and they thought I could do the job. Unfortunately, there was no job to do.
You sat there and collected a check.
Yeah, I was just sitting at my desk, and I was telling you guys there was a guy every morning that would hook up my computer to a screen, whatever, and I'm just sitting there.
Someone pays you to do that?
Yep. And then I'm sitting there for 8 hours, and then I feel like the Flintstones, right? And then at 4 o'clock, and then you clock out, and then go home, and then you're and the next morning you do the same thing.
Wow, I got paid for that.
Yeah, but the thing that was cool, I told you guys, was when they brought me to go see Yves Guillemot.
The big man.
Yeah, the big man in New York on Varick Street, and I was pretty impressed at that time by the operations and whatever. And he's a cool guy and stuff, but it was a long time ago. But that was my stint in the video game industry.
Yeah,
and that was enough.
That was. It's not the same thing as
You're
playing.
like, you know what? I'm just going to make liquor.
10 years later.
Yep. Well, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you,
This is
guys.
actually
Thank
the
you.
first time we've had someone else in our new studio as well.
Yep.
So we're making do. We're barely like fitting in. Like I'm right on the edge here. I can't really move too much more because I got to get access to the other PC that's out of shot here. But yeah, this is our first time we've had somebody in our new studio, so we've christened it in that way. One thing that we do for GameFace guest patrons is they get to choose a topic, and we get to discuss it together. And you have chosen a topic that is near and dear to your heart, but I think what was most important to you was that you got to talk about the Saturn, right?
Yes.
Is the Saturn your favorite console?
I would say that it is.
Yeah?
I have the fondest memories of it. And I also picked it because I knew that Matt also had fond memories of the Saturn too. But yeah, I still cannot comprehend why those games are not being either remastered, put somewhere. Of course, there's the ROMs and all that stuff, whatever. But I come from the era where most of the games I had to play came from Japan, and I had to put a disc of an actual American game in my Saturn, open the lid at the right time, switch the Japanese disc, and put it in there for it to be able to play, you know?
Right.
And that's how much I crave those games, and I was really willing to do anything to play them.
Just one note before we get going. Watch your mic. I mean, 'cause I think your jacket might be tapping it. Yeah, just keep that in mind throughout the show.
No problem.
So in light of that, you being a big Saturn fan,
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about games that were kind of B-tier games that deserve more recognition than they've actually received since they've been released.
I would say they are A-tier games,
Not
but
A versus AAA, I guess.
oh, right. In that sense, yeah.
Which B-tier kind of the same thing. I guess.
Right. But yeah, definitely because
And there were some of those on the Saturn for sure.
Yeah, I think that one of the segments that I like watching GameFace is, like I told you guys earlier, is your knowledge of the past also. And sometimes the past explains the future.
A lot of times it does.
Yeah, and explain decisions that are being made right now. And I forgot the game that you guys were talking about. I remember the B-roll. It was rough. It was like a dinosaur thing. I don't know. It was red all over and whatever. But that made me think, oh my God, there's so much stuff that people don't know. Right?
Oh, yeah.
that happened before, like even younger gamers right now, right? And so
Do they
forth.
care? I think maybe is the better question.
But I think if you're a fan of an industry, I think it's important to know where it comes from. Like you're a fan of music, you would learn about the old. The classics, right, and so forth. You're a fan of movies, you can understand. Like, of course, Casablanca is not my favorite movie ever, but you can understand why it was that thing at that time, and it explains everything. And when you put everything all together, what you realize is that we're not so far from what was before. It's just sometimes the graphics are better or stuff like that. But I would argue that some games from the past are better than the games that are coming out right now.
Absolutely. Well, they also had the benefit of being able to do things for the first time, which that's an advantage that any old media has.
For sure.
It's like if you're the first slasher horror film, you have an advantage over the people who are going to do it later on. They have to iterate on it and somehow change it and make it different from what has come before.
Yep.
So there are advantages to being sort of an early entry in any form of media. But yeah, especially with games, with the technical stuff, there's an advantage to people who are making games now because it's easier to make them look good.
Like when you did the game last week. Oh, by the way, do you have my stickers?
I do have your stickers. That's funny, by the way. I'm glad you brought that up, because I may have actually forgot about it.
Yeah.
But I brought them.
Yeah.
And I would have brought them and not given them to you. But you know what? I was thinking ahead, and I brought his stickers. Because Steve named that game last week.
Yeah, it was.
And we're actually
random.
able to give him his stickers in person. So there you go. And the funny part is,
thank you, Shane.
if you hadn't have mentioned that, I may have walked out of here and never given them to you.
Yep. But just to circle back on what we're saying, like Skies of Arcadia is a game that I played. I never finished it though, but you saw the scale of what they were trying to do at that time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's why when you said the clues, I was like, but it must be Skies of Arcadia, right? Because when you're talking about an RPG, talking about dreams, that's what it makes you. Of course, we were talking about the Dreamcast, but that's what it made me feel, And I remember like seeing the first previews of that games in magazines and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it was
like an open world action RPG in the skies. Literally nothing had come before it like that.
Yeah, and it had it was a bright and colorful and up RPG, which
Yeah.
had stopped after Final Fantasy
That's
VII.
true.
Like
Right.
everything
Yeah.
was dark, everything was sad,
Yep.
Grimy.
everyone had
That's
amnesia,
exactly-
and nobody wanted to be there. Like that was what JRPGs were. for
Everyone
years.
had amnesia. That's great. So anyway, what we're going to do is all three of us have chosen 3 games that we believe that maybe when they came out, they weren't as revered as they deserve to be, but in hindsight, they deserve a lot more praise than they got initially. We're going to lead things off with you, Steve.
Perfect.
What's your first pick?
So my first pick is Shining Force 3.
Okay.
On Sega Saturn. And this game, guys, I cannot tell you, I have in my office for the longest time a little screen like this, a Sega Saturn plugged in, and Shining Force 3 in it, because when I need to leave out on Steam, I just turn around and I start playing it for the fun of it. This is the tactical strategy tactical RPG that kills them all.
Wow, big words.
Yes, yes. If people are not familiar with the Shining Force series, it started on the Sega Genesis. So the first and the second one were on Sega Genesis, and then they did the third one on the Sega Saturn. What you're seeing on the B-roll is the scenario 1, because there was 3 scenarios, 3 games of itself. The way the stories intertwine is, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing, and spoiler at this.
How do they work? How do the 3 different parts work?
So basically, the 3 parts are 3 stories from 3 perspectives. And so let me put it that way. The main story is about 2 forces, 2 empires going to war, and there's 2 different leaders, right? Scenario 1 is about I'm not going to say a mercenary. I would say maybe some kind of lord, son of a lord that's well respected within the army. And the second scenario, the hero is a prince, right? And what happens is that they become friends because they find out that there's a bigger threat than their war that they're actively fighting, but they're forced to fight each other, right?
Okay.
And basically, the story would, what you would do in the first scenario, for example, like you would go in a battle. I remember this battle vividly. There's a train, and you need to be able to cross across the rails of the train within a number of turns, right? If you're not able to do that, you would lose either like a special weapon in the second scenario, or you would not have another character in the second scenario, or even in the third scenario. And that's how they would
So it's
every time-
permadeath.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that's why I prefer it to sorry, forgot the name.
Fire Emblem?
Fire Emblem. So that's why this is, to me, way better than Fire Emblem. In terms of the gameplay, the weapon, what would happen is that you would, for example, if you're a swordman, you would have 3 types of sword. So we'd have a rapier, a blade, and a normal broadsword. And whichever you decide to equip, the longer you equip it, you would have special attacks and critical rates that would improve upon you equipping that weapon for a long time. So you could have your main hero have a rapier, and he's going to be more agile, have more critical rate, but less strong and stuff like that, and so forth. And that goes for lance, gloves, whatever you name it. And the story is just awesome. And
How about the fact it's one of the first 3D RPGs? I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
Listen, I can't say enough about this game. Like, even in the third scenario, you have a force of like about 48 characters that you can like train, and so it's just amazing. And if you had the 3 in Japan, if you had the 3 scenarios, there was a card in it that you can send to Sega, and they would send you the premium disc.
No way.
Which would come in, and you have fights that was a remastered or remake from the boss fights from the Shining Force 1, Shining Force 2.
From the Genesis games.
Exactly, and you could use the characters from from Shining Force 3 to tackle those bosses. But I want to mention to people in America, because of all the Saturn woes that was happening, they only released the first scenario.
Yeah, and it was one of near the tail end of the Saturn, so it's one of the last U.S. releases, which means there's maybe 4,000 copies.
Wow. How much is it worth?
It's worth
A couple hundred.
A lot.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
for
it?
sure.
Yeah.
New, you could find it for $900. I'm pretty sure. $900 for sure. New, unsealed, sealed. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
100%.
is along with Panzer Dragoon Saga and House of the Dead and Burning Rangers. This is one of the rare U.S. Saturn
Magic
games.
Magic Knight, Rayher for Dragon Force. All of those are, if they're sealed, you're looking at thousands of dollars. It's for sure.
Why have they not made any modern versions of this series?
There have been, mostly on the GBA and the
Yeah, I mean,
DS.
it's been, what, 10 years since they've made one?
Maybe. Like Saturn, I mean, Sega doesn't really do this anymore.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, frankly, I mean, look, I agree that Shining Force is better than Fire Emblem. To me, Fire Emblem is like, well, if they're not going to make Shining Force, I'll play this.
There you go.
You know?
Thank you.
And because Shining Force has a scale and a, you know, like Fire Emblem does pretty well with the characters and sort of the storytelling in that regard, but Shining Force has always felt like a war.
Yeah.
Like a global a world shaking event happening. Suikoden also had that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because they've lost a lot of the source code.
Is there any way to play this now?
Yes. Well, I mean, you can go track down
Is there like a collection or?
There is no collection. Your options are to get a Saturn and find this disc or emulation.
Yeah.
And I will say that in the emulation community, I believe there are fan-made English translations of the other two now.
I can confirm that.
Oh, wow.
You can play all three of them in English now if you are willing to commit some
Do it illegally.
light piracy of a 25-year-old game.
Look, you're not taking money away.
No one's losing money if you decide to do that. Right?
I would confirm what Matt just said. That's how I played the other scenarios. I actually, in the A-Day, so we're talking about 1998 now. We're talking about 1998, 1999. At that time, I literally, first, before it was on the ROM, on the CDs, they actually translated the whole game, the whole two scenarios on paper.
Oh, wow.
On the internet, I was playing at home at my mom's
Reading
house,
the translation.
reading the translation of every scene to know what to do, where to go next, and so forth. That's how much committed I was about this game. And I would say another thing also, and we can change after that. It was also linked to another game, which is called Shining the Holy Ark.
Right.
And basically there are enemies from this game. So the story of Shining the Holy Ark transcends into that story also, which again is a whole other spec. And if you're a fan of Fire Emblem, you need to find a copy of that game and find a way to play it. You will not be disappointed. I'm telling you, it's my best game ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big praise. From someone who's been playing games as long as you, that's some big words.
100%.
All right, so let's move on to Matt's first pick. This game isn't actually all that old.
No, I went pretty recent with these. I didn't know we were going
No, it's fine.
ancient.
It's
'Cause
totally
if I'd
fine.
known we were going Saturn era, my pick would be Dragon Force. Because that is easily one of my top 10 games of all time. And I just replayed it last year because I went to the trouble of hooking my Saturn up to an HDMI and the whole thing and got the cables for it and everything. And I put in Dragon Force, and I'm like, I'll just play this for a bit. Nope, played it for 80 hours.
Wow.
Played it all over again. I'm like, yeah, this is still great.
That's amazing. But your first pick instead is...
My first pick is also still really great, which is Disco Elysium.
Yeah.
So this just, I
It's
think...
hard to call this B tier, don't you think?
It's made by 4 people on like $100,000 budget. It's
Yeah.
not, it's the
I guess I'm just
definition.
looking at how successful it's been, really.
I don't know how successful you'd call this in comparison to like Last of Us 2. This is definitely a B movie equivalent. Like
Yeah.
this, I mean, these guys I don't think will ever make anything we would... I don't think these guys will ever make something we wouldn't call AAA again, because this game has made their reputation, and they will have investors, and they will have... You know, surely Microsoft and Sony are taking note of these guys.
Yeah,
but it is kind of appropriate in that it is a throwback to games that were being done around the same time as the Saturn. Like this is a callback to games like, especially Planescape Torment, which was '99. Isometric, fairly combat light. In fact, all combat in this game is just done through a single die roll from one of your skill checks, and it's mostly just text. And the original version was a lot of reading. The final cut that came out on PlayStation earlier this year and just, I think, came out on Xbox and Switch like a couple weeks ago, that is fully voiced now. And it is like almost nothing else you can play right now. It is incredibly smart. It is, and
it may stay that way for a while.
Yeah, I think so.
This is
no
the
one
type
else
of
is
game you can
try
just
this.
whip up overnight.
No, this is a passion project by a very small Eastern European team who just wanted to make a game along the lines of, I think, the games they grew up playing that aren't made anymore, and they went in real hard on this. Like, you play as a police detective who wakes up mostly naked and hungover and can't remember anything, including his own name and his own occupation, in a hotel room, and you have to sort of piece together who you are. But part of the reason that's there is the game gives you the option to construct his personality out of your dialogue choices, and you can eventually create ideas, and if you equip those ideas in your mind palace, you become a different thinking person, and you can make him like a hardcore, like, anarcho, like, capitalist, or a hardcore communist, or a royalist who thinks that the king should be in charge, or someone, or someone who you can convince yourself that you're a rock star. You aren't. No one thinks you're a rock star. Everyone knows you're not a rock star. But you can convince yourself you are, and all your dialogue will slowly change to reflect that you think you are a famous musician.
Wow.
And no one else thinks you are, but you will still behave that way. And that's sort of how this game rolls. It lets you, like, I've died in the first 5 minutes because I tried to grab the wrong thing off a moving fan and I hit my head and died.
Because you wake up, you're like drunk,
really
and
drunk,
hungover, right?
And if you don't have a high enough, life skill, basically, all your skills determine your hit points, and if you don't have a high enough, like, you could kill yourself trying to get a tie off a fan.
Yeah.
It's very funny. It's very smart. There's like it's weirdly touching at times. It's disturbing in places. It is one of the
a long game.
It can be if you really poke around and do everything, but there is a time limit on some things.
Right.
Like, everything you do takes time.
Right.
And you've got the different archetypes. You can create your own. It's fascinating because you can, if you put a lot of points into psyche, you'll have a lot of insight, and a lot of things will be going on in your head. But you're gonna have to be either weak or less, weaker physique, or not as intelligent. That's a lot of fun to play a character in this game who is really strong in, like, psyche and, like, intuition, but is really dumb. And, like, so you can't make any logic leaps, but you think, like, all these amazing magical things are happening around. It's kind of very David Lynch. It's you can do a pretty good you can what you're doing is the same in terms of physical actions, but the way the character reacts to it is completely different, and the way the characters react to that reaction is completely different. And it is it's just unlike anything else I've ever seen. And with the extra voice acting, it really changed. Like, if they've got one guy doing all, what is it? I think it's 32 different voices.
Whoa!
Because every skill in the game is a different voice in the character's head, and so the one guy is doing a different voice for every skill.
Wow.
And those skills you can see in the text there. Each little, like, thing where it says, like, what. Well, trash container is not a character, but you'll see, like, Hanged Man or Inland Empire and stuff like that, and those are all skills, and they all have different voices that the guy's doing to personify what's happening in the character's head. And you'll have 10-minute long conversations in your head with yourself before you respond in the middle of a conversation. And sometimes that's just something that happened and no one reacts to it. And sometimes people are like, what were you doing for 10 minutes while we all stood here staring at you?
Yeah.
It's really, really one of the best things I played in many, many years.
Yep.
And
I believe it just launched for Xbox and Switch, right?
Final Cut just came out on Switch and Xbox, and I think the physical copy is either out now or coming soon.
Yep.
If you're
Into
one of
that
those people
kinda
that
thing.
insists on having a disc.
Yep.
But if you haven't played this thing and you have the patience for something weird and Lynchian and just something that really doesn't talk down to you, like, I can't recommend Disco Elysium enough. I've thrown it at people I know who don't play games much at all, but I know appreciate a good dose of weird, and they've all come away. Like, I had one guy who was just mad that he didn't play it like 6 months ago when I told him to.
Uh-huh.
He's like, I can't believe I waited this long to play it. It was so stupid. I'm like, so yeah, I think it's one of the easiest recommends of the generation.
Okay.
Nice.
My first pick is a game that's not that old, but it's not that new either, and it is Journey. Now, the first thing I will say about Journey is when it came out, I was not one of the people that was like, Journey deserves Game of the Year. And there were people that worked with me at Game Trailers who absolutely, in fact, I think that was a big argument we had, is there were a couple people on our staff who were pushing for Journey to be Game of the Year, and I was kind of the blockade keeping that from happening. And it wasn't just me. There were other people who felt the same way. But there were people who thought it should be Game of the Year the year it came out. I do not believe that to be the case. However,
What year was it?
Oh, was it 2009? Is that right?
Maybe? I can't remember.
Wasn't it like
PS3, wasn't it?
Beginning of PS3?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But there were people pushing for it to be Game of the Year. I honestly didn't even play it at first because I wasn't the one assigned to review it. And so I was like, all right, well, if people are talking about maybe it's Game of the Year, I need to play it. And I was pleasantly surprised by this game. What I liked most about
2012.
this game... 2012. Oh, wow, I was way off on that one. What I like the most about this game is, one, it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't really tell you what to do or how to do it. Mm-hmm. It just allows you to discover it on your own. But the way the game is set up, there are subtle cues that sort of take the player down the road, teaching them how to play it. And then there's like this really cool cooperative element to the game where you can't really communicate with other people. Mm-hmm. There's just kind of like these little like sound cues that you get. It was just this very subtle, very interesting, beautiful, gorgeous game that I'll be honest, I don't know that I've played anything like it since. Now, I think if you had games like this coming out consistently, like every month or even every 6 months, they might lose their charm a little bit. But I think a lot of developers are afraid to try stuff like this. And so the bravery of the studio to work on this, and then to realize their vision and execute it in a great way, it was a very emotional game without any dialogue.
Right.
That's hard to do.
Yep.
It's really hard to do. And so it left a lasting impression on me, to be sure. Again, I wasn't like a champion for it like a lot of other people were that I worked with, but I really enjoyed it, and it still has stuck with me to this day. And I think it did actually end up winning some Game of the Year awards from other publications.
Not from you.
Nope, definitely not from me.
That was The Walking Dead.
Yeah, The Walking Dead. Oh, you mean at the VGAs?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So maybe Journey should have won.
It's definitely better than The Walking Dead.
I would definitely give Journey that over Walking Dead at this. Certainly in hindsight.
Well, do you remember how angry I was like, that's bullshit that The Walking Dead won Game of the Year? Yeah. I think I was right.
Yeah, I think you were. I mean, Walking Dead is still good.
I got a lot of shit for that, man. I remember someone from IGN went after me at the VGAs because I said it shouldn't be Game of the Year. I'm not going to call people out, but like we were doing like some little thing for the VGAs where he and I were in this little room off to the side where they're getting like commentary as they go to commercial or whatever. And
I remember when they did that.
Yeah. And so we had like our little discussion about stuff, and then we both walked out of the room, and he's like, hey, and he's like, I want to talk to you about this. And I was just like, whatever,
Come here,
dude.
buddy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what?
Get away from me,
Come
dude.
on.
Like, it ended up, I was right. I'm not always right, but in that case, I think
I was glad to see like basically a point and click adventure being recognized the way it was. 'Cause I like that genre, but best game of that. I mean,
it's a tough one.
It's hard to say that.
It was I'll say this: it was not a great year for games.
No, it was. Just looking up the critical, I looked up the critically acclaimed games in 2012. No, it really was. It was slim
It may be
pickings.
one of the worst years ever for game releases. Actually, I don't know what happened in 2012, but yeah, I remember.
They shut G4 down. That's what happened.
There you go. And it just screwed everything.
up.
Okay, Charles, we're ready for your second pick.
Right. So,
and it is
Thief 2, The Metal Age.
I was surprised at this pick.
Again, the praises for this game are
It's a
so
pioneering game.
Oh my God! It's people that played Splinter Cell, people that played
Metal Gear.
Metal Gear, or even forgot the name of Bethesda. You can control rats or something. What is
Dishonored.
it? Dishonored, or something like that. But Thief is greater than all of those games. The reason why is the ambiance. I've never played a game. This is literally a game that you need to play in a dark room at night with silence. You cannot. Your girlfriend cannot be next to you if she's not into that. Like you need to play this alone in an environment, and the ambiance is nothing else. It had at the time it had the cover system where the little jewel in the middle of the screen indicates how visible you are. And again, we're talking about 1998, 1999. So I wanted to talk about this game because, yes, I like it a lot, but also because I think they made a mockery of this game with the latest adaptations of it.
Yeah.
And that has to do...
I would agree with that. They changed the tone of the franchise.
They budgeted. It's as simple as that. The artistic choices, even if maybe they were limited maybe because of resources or whatever it was, it worked. Right? There was a mix of some scenes were a mix of FMV and graphics, and those cut scenes are to date. They before you. So okay, I'll just explain the way the game is played. So you play as Garrett, which is a master. He's a master thief. But the reason why he's a master thief is not because he's just a thief. It's because in the first game, what you learn is that he was pickpocketing people. Like it's a steampunk environment. He was pickpocketing people, and he had a skill. And somebody noticed that skill, and that person was from some kind of oracle or whatever. Like they call them the keepers, right? And the keepers are there, but they're not meant to be seen. And Garrett, as a young child, was able to see them, right? Mm-hmm. And at that point, what happened is that, oh, you have a skill, maybe we should bring you in. Mm-hmm. So they teach him how to not be seen, for him to be, you know what, I don't like this. Yeah. So I'm just going to go back to the streets and use what I learned to just rip off lords and barons that are doing bad stuff anyways, right?
Basically be Robin Hood.
Robin Hood, but in a cooler way, right? Yeah. So, and he winds up in this whole story by mistake, right? And he has to fix it, right? And that's the first game. In the second game, it's basically you're trying to stop a prophecy from happening, something that you learned in the first game. And by learning and by trying to do this, you have to go through missions, because the game always starts by, okay, first do this, and then you find out that, oh, that's related to this thing that I need to do. And the missions are huge. They are fun. Like, I remember playing this game and for the first time, and the stage you're seeing here right now, the warehouse, this took me 2 hours and 45 minutes just to finish. Like,
is that good? Is that a good thing?
It's a good thing because you want to find everything, right? Yeah. Because remember, he's a thief, so we have objectives. So if you're an easy, you have to find 800 in gold. If you're at normal, you have to find $1,600 in gold. If you have expert, you have to go open everything and pickpocket everyone, open all the doors and everything, and finding all those stuff. It's fun. There's a lot of secret doors in it, and the story is awesome. The voice acting from the actor that does Garrett is awesome also, and the other people also. I think it's. My
big complaint about it was that the AI was like brain dead.
So that's
like, I felt like I could just walk right up to people and like they couldn't see me a lot of times.
Right.
That's how good you are.
I definitely not the case.
So
right.
Garrett says good.
Right. Got you.
So that's the thing. So I think that part of the thing about Thief is that the guards, they're not your enemy. The sense that you're not supposed to get killed by a guard, right? So it's just a question of how you're going to neutralize them, right? So it's fairly easy, especially if you're playing on easy.
Yeah.
Oh, you can just use that bow and you'll be good. Try and play on expert.
Yeah, I never played it on the hard. I never play any game on the hardest setting.
So it's like the conversation you guys were having about Hitman 3, right? Which again, I think this is better than Hitman 3 of the way that it presents itself. But it's the same thing, right? It's but even in that game, try to just run. Like in Hitman, you can run and just like kill the guy that you need to kill, and the game is going to be over. In this, you need to find stuff because it's part of the story, right? So you can't finish the mission if you have all the gold, because you need the manuscript or you need the scepter that whatever fence asks you to go get. And then when you go and meet the fence is dead. Why? Because they were trying to get you. Why? And then you need to find out why. And then what I like about this game is he has no limits. So, the sheriff is after me. Well, I got to go to the precinct inside the where everybody wants me dead and find out what's going on. And then you find other stuff. Again, top tier game for me. I can't praise it enough. I think it's the like you said, the precursor to a lot of games that people don't know. And funny story, I discovered this game because of, I think it was PC Magazine. They were giving demo disc
back when there were demo discs.
I remember those, yeah.
And I discovered Thief because...
OPM used to do that. Official PlayStation Magazine used to
Yep.
give you demo discs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the studio that made this game is called Looking Glass, and they were dissolved.
Oh, yeah, they're not even around anymore.
More Inspector and all those guys.
And
Yeah, you don't get Dishonored without this game existing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you can definitely see Dishonored in that B-roll,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
It was like this and Deus Ex,
Yeah.
were the kind of two sides of the same coin in terms of, I mean, what would now be called by obnoxious people immersive sims.
Yeah.
I do. I don't like stealth stuff too much, but Thief 2 is definitely the best of its kind.
You're also right, Steve, that they completely ruined the franchise.
Yeah,
they killed it.
the new one is
they're
just bizarre choices.
I mean, even if it were good or even excellent, it's kind of irrelevant because it does just completely obliterate the tone of the original games.
Yeah.
It was basically infected by Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
That's what that's what it felt like. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good pick. Matt, your next choice is Cloudpunk.
Yes.
What do you like about this game?
So this is sort of unintentionally a bit of a throwback, I guess. So this is it's built with voxels, like rough voxels, if you look closely. So as I think has been somewhat established, I do really like cyberpunk stuff and Blade Runner stuff, and sort
You
of
don't say.
the aesthetic of that kind of thing. So what Cloudpunk is you are the driver for a hover car delivery service, basically called Cloudpunk, and it's your first night on the job, and the last person who drove your car, something happened to them that they won't get into, and you do a few early things and kind of like, you know, you're activating your AI, like you have a partner AI which is actually your dog, which may or may not be your actual dog that you've downloaded into a car, and the dog is like, where am I? Why am I a car? Kind of, it's very weird. And like, so very quickly it turns out that there's some shady stuff going on, so you have to sort of maneuver your way through that. But basically, it's a giant open city. It's not open world because there's load screens. You go between areas of the city, but in these areas here, you can fly anywhere. Like you can go down and up and over, and you go faster on the actual roads, like the freeways and stuff. But you can fly wherever you want. You can land on landing pads, and then you can get out as a little like block stick figure character and run anywhere. Like there's people you can talk to. You can do quests and fetch quests and buy stuff and get ramen noodles and like pick stuff up and go up the elevators into the different skyrise hotels and meet people who don't think you should be where you are, and like get extra jobs and buy upgrades and buy new things for your car and like all that.
Sounds like an immersive sim.
It kind of. I wouldn't necessarily go that far. It's more of an immersive sim than immersive sims are.
Yeah.
And it just this was like a weird little indie thing that I found on Xbox last year, and it was like $15, and it just kind of blew me away. It was I was waiting for Cyberpunk to come out, and I actually enjoyed this more in the end. And like it, the graphics look a little rough when you get in close because they are, it's a small indie game that like not many people have heard of, and it's the budget is probably fairly minor, but I think what they're after is really cool, and it reminds me of those 90s era ambitious PC games like Thief, like Bethesda's Terminator game, like those things that were trying to do something that they weren't ready, that no one was ready to do yet, but they kind of did it. You're like, it's rough, and maybe someone wouldn't want to play like Arx Fatalis now, but at the time it was like, what are these crazy people doing? Like, how did they do this? How did they make it so I can kill a thing and take their ribs and go find a fire and cook up some ribs and eat that later, and that's how I get my health back? It was just that flow of things, and Cloudpunk kind of has that, where you really feel like you feel like this cyberpunk city is a really a functioning place. With like, you land, there's restaurants over here, this is where the hotels are, over here is where I got to get to. Sometimes you're like, I got to get to this apartment plan. You can follow the objective marker, but then like the place you have to park is like uncomfortably far away, and you're like, yeah, that's totally how they would have designed that. Like, because you have to walk through the retail section first. They want you to look at the shopping district before you get to the residential area, and like it's all very well thought out, and the story is actually pretty intriguing because it becomes sort of like the usual corporate because Cloudpunk is maybe not the most licensed company in the city, and like that starts to become a thing. But it's really cool, and I never heard anyone talk about it except me. So I try to like make people play it or make people aware of it when I can. Okay. I think this is a nice little hidden gem.
This is the real cyberpunk.
I think this is. I mean, if you're willing to drive a hover car more than you are willing to run around and shoot people, because there's no shooting, it's just like a sort of a story delivery driven thing. It also reminds me of an old game I used to play on the Commodore 64 called Space Taxi. And it blows my mind that there hasn't been, maybe there has been a modern Space Taxi remake, but that was a 2D game where it was like Joust sort of, where you had a little taxi with jets on it, and you flew up, and someone like would hail you, and it was like a digitized voice thing. It was like, "Hey, taxi," and you'd come and land. You had to put the landing gear down and land like safely, and they'd come over and get on. They'd be like, "Pad 2, please," and like you have to fly over to pad 2, and like if you hit things or landed bad, they wouldn't give you money. They wouldn't tip you because you like had a bad ride, and basically you had to do that until you earn enough money to move to the next thing. And there's like eventually there'd be like weird obstacles and stuff. But that reminds me of that too,
right?
Because you do slowly damage your car if you keep hitting things, and you have to pay to repair it, and then that can, you use up all your money, and you're like, oh, I can't afford my car repairs anymore. It's like
it sounds like an immersive sim.
It's
in the purest sense of the term.
I mean, it
not what people are calling immersive sims now.
Not a first-person action RPG, which is what Deus Ex is.
People decided to call immersive.
This is an immersive world that is simulating something.
Things. Yes, yeah, exactly. Okay, that's a good pick, man. My second pick, people may be surprised by this one. Well, maybe not. Is Fall Guys. I'm a huge fan of 3D platformers. I felt like I had waited a really long time for an innovation in the genre, and I felt like I usually relied on Nintendo to do that, and I was surprised that this little team, again, I think this is a handful of people that made this game, managed to find this unique twist on a genre that I love so much. I would not be surprised if Nintendo eventually does sort of maybe try its hand at something like this. I mean, imagine if Fall Guys were branded in Mario stuff, if it was set in the Mushroom Kingdom.
It feels like something you could easily do with like Pikmin or something.
That wouldn't be a bad idea either. But
or like a mode in Splatoon.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do 3D platforming, though, you're probably going to use Mario, be my guess. But it's just...
That's a lot of toads.
Yeah.
I bet you probably have like 60 Mario characters at this point.
Maybe.
Yeah, you got to be getting pretty close.
Like in Mario Kart, there's a lot of characters.
I mean, there's like 18.
If you're including all the enemies and everyone who's ever been in any of the spin-off things, and like characters from like Luigi's Mansion and the Paper Mario stuff, you probably could get there. Like the Mario and Luigi games, like you could probably get 60 characters out of that.
Like, I love the concept of Fall Guys. I feel like it's executed okay. I feel like if Nintendo took a shot at something like this, it could really become something amazing. Not that Fall Guys isn't. Obviously, it's one of the biggest releases of the year it came out.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like it would just, something with recognizable IP would have instant traction in a way.
And just, the controls. Generally, the controls in Nintendo games are great.
Yeah, well,
they're a little loose in this. And
you don't buy the thing that like they're like that on purpose?
Maybe a little, yeah, because I think sort of the bumbling element of it is what adds to some of the fun.
Like you don't want anyone to really be able to perfect it, like you want a little random in it.
Or you could have power-ups that give people increased control for like 5 seconds or something like that to help them get ahead.
Fall Guys with blue shells would definitely be definitely add a wrinkle.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed this game. It became a smash hit, which surprised me. It's not really the type of game I normally would think would do really well with a mass audience, other than Mario. Mario's really the only 3D platforming franchise that still manages to do well with a bigger audience. And so, it's one of those games that was designed perfectly for what it was meant to do. And as to Matt's point, I agree. I do think that maybe they nerfed the controls a little bit on purpose to kind of create a mania about the game where you don't feel like you're always in control. It was just kind of a perfect blend of a lot of different elements to make it a hit. And to me, it was a B-tier game. It came out of nowhere to become a smash hit, and a game that I personally really enjoyed playing and had a lot of fun with.
I never played the Fall Guy.
You haven't played it?
No, I haven't. I think downloaded on my.
Yeah, wasn't it free on PlayStation Plus?
Yeah, it was a PlayStation Plus.
You missed your window. Yeah. I would probably still pay for it.
I actually downloaded it, but I never played it.
Oh, okay. Give it a go, man. I think for a lot of people, it's a pleasant surprise. And now they've added so much onto it. It's almost an entirely different game from whenever it launched.
Right.
So it has tons of content now. That was the big drawback at first, was that there wasn't enough maps mini games. It got to the point where you could memorize each one, and the people who had memorized them were at a distinct disadvantage. But now there's so many maps. I mean, I'm sure there's people who have memorized them all. I'm not one of them. But as a newbie, it's like you're not going to memorize them all in like an hour like you could when it first launched. So there's just a lot more content there now for people who want to check it out. I highly recommend it. All right, Steve, it's time for your last pick, my friend.
Yeah, this was hard. This was hard because initially, remember, I sent you 5 games.
You did. Yeah, and I was like, and actually, what I told you is bearing out right now because we're almost an hour into the show and we're still in the first segment. So at first, he was like, I got 5. And I was like, let's cut it to 3 because by the time 3 of us get through 3 picks, it'll take a while. And here we are, almost an hour in. And now it's your third pick.
Yeah, my third pick. It's Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yep, we've talked about that a few times here on GameFace.
Yes. Again, if you don't know by now, I'm a classic guy. But again, I remember when this came out of nowhere. We were still renting games at that time. I just went to my local. We always had that renting shop that was like better than the other bigger.
That wasn't
thing.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, right.
But they got a lot more games.
And this came on the shelf out of nowhere. I rented it, and funny story is the first battle of this tactical RPG is you're in a village, and I didn't know that you could choose other characters to fight with you. So for people that are familiar with Tactics, the 2 main characters at the beginning are Delita and Ramza, and basically for some reason they need to fight some thieves or whatever. And I'm doing this battle with 2 characters when I could actually have 6 or 7 total. And I actually managed to beat everyone by strategically knowing, okay, I'm going to kill the other character, because when you kill an enemy, it's after 3 turns, they're either going to transform into a chest or a crystal. And the crystal would give you your HP and your MP back. So at that time, I didn't have any items. It's the first fight, so I was like, I kept on dying. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill this guy there. So that way I'm going to have enough panels to be able to reach, because my health is going to be depleted. So I'm going to be able, and then afterwards I learned that when you're placing the characters at the beginning, you just need to press your right and left buttons, and you have other characters that you can add.
That was the other thing about renting games is a lot of times you didn't get the instruction manual.
Yeah, that's true.
You'd have to just figure them out on your own. And there was no internet to tell you what to do.
Yeah, or for me, that's the way I learned how to how to read English, is because of Final Fantasy IV, because French is my first language, right? So it forced myself. I wanted to understand with the game, so I had no choice. But that's not near or there. But to go back to Tactics, the reason why I love it is because of the story. I still believe that story.
It's a great story.
I believe that story could be could be a film. I just came out of seeing The Last Duel with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and I forgot.
Adam Driver.
Yeah, exactly. Adam Driver. And even though I didn't like the ending of that movie, it reminds me of what Tactics could look like if they decided to do it as a movie. But that's how good the story is in that game.
It is that good.
Yeah. And the strategy in it, I really liked it. Also, of course, the job system was really intuitive with mixing skills from other jobs, of course, to be able to. So for me, it was I had the monk, but with 2 swords. So the monk is really strong, but when you have 2 swords, you have 2 punches. And I had the teleport from the time mage, so sometimes I could finish a fight. I remember one fight was you're at the beginning of this cathedral with a bell on top, and you need to go up, all the way fighting enemies. And I just teleport to the top, just kill the guy, and the fight is over in 30 seconds. So there was a lot of things that you could do to change that, but to make your characters more interesting. But yeah, I just have fun memories of this game. I think that, again, in terms of strategy games, if you like Fire Emblem, to be honest, this is a lot of revenge that I'm putting on this show, because Fire Emblem Three Houses disappointed me so much that I feel that it's a must for people that liked it, that they go and play those games. Because
why did it disappoint you? Matt and I told you that it wasn't going to be that, it wasn't that great.
Yeah,
I mean, we liked it, but
I mean,
a lot of people gave it high scores, but we were two of the people who was like, "Oh, slow that roll a little
yeah,
bit."
I think it's like when it's been a long time you didn't eat, and then you have your first meal.
Yeah.
It
You eat
tastes
way
good.
too fast.
Yeah, there isn't really anything else like that right
Yeah.
now. Japanese strategy RPGs are pretty light on the ground these
Right.
days.
Yeah, it's true.
So you have treehouses.com, but every time I play,
I'm not asking you why you bought it. I'm asking you why you were surprised it wasn't amazing.
I felt that it was too. I felt it was cliche. I felt it was.
No, I'm not asking. No, that's not what I'm asking either. I'm not asking why you didn't like it.
Right.
I'm asking why your expectations were so high for it,
Oh,
so that you
right.
were disappointed.
I don't know, because of the marketing, I guess.
Yeah.
And
It's always
again,
interesting to kind of look at where did I get that hype from, right?
The tree characters reminded me of Shining Force 3. I thought maybe it was going to be in that vein.
Right.
It didn't even rush
Yeah.
what it could be.
Yep.
And I think the ending is dumb. I think.
You got your money's worth, though.
You have your money's worth in terms
It
of playing
goes
time.
on and on
But if
and
you
on.
finish playing the game and you throw the control on the ground and like, screw this game.
Was it a good value then?
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't. For me,
Yeah.
for me, that's really how I value a game. I need, when I come to the end, I need to, everything needs to come together. And I just do an honorable mention to Hollow Knight and Chrono Trigger, because those were my two other picks. And Hollow Knight is that game. You finish the game and you're like, oh my god! Like you put it and you're like, that was, and you do the same thing with Tactics. And all those games, like you finish them and you feel that you accomplished something.
You do. Sometimes you're like, phew.
Right.
They're a long journey. Okay, those are all good picks. Like really good picks. Matt, what is your last pick?
My last pick is. You didn't put it on the.
It's
That's
Rebel
right.
Galaxy,
Rebel Galaxy
Outlaw.
Outlaw.
Yeah.
So Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is the sequel to Rebel Galaxy, a little indie game out of Texas that originally was going to be. So Rebel Galaxy was originally going to be like a Wing Commander kind of game, and then they saw Star Citizen existed and decided that they didn't want to compete with Star Citizen.
Which still,
Which still is not out, and not yeah. So that's why Rebel Galaxy is more of a you drive a capital ship, and it's more like it plays
Music is playing. It's something.
Oh, because I have the. Actually, let's stop just for a second because people have been asking if we are going to go to the Sony State of Play. We are not. For the reason that we just don't have the audio capability for us to hear what's going on while you guys watch it. So we totally understand if you guys want to head over and check out Sony State of Play. We are not covering it here live on the show, though. Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so the first one was changed to be basically you fly a capital ship, and it plays a lot like the ship sequences in Assassin's Creed. You're rotating around it, firing cannons, that kind of thing. And then they realized that Star Citizen basically doesn't exist, so they can make the game they wanted to. So the sequels were called Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. It's a prequel. You play as the aunt of your character from the first game, who is in the first game at the beginning. She's dead and has left you her ship basically, and told you to go meet one of her old contacts from when she was a hotshot pirate, and you inherit this old ship. And like you're kind of like discovering what your aunt's life was like and who all these people were. So this is a prequel that flashes back to when she was young and learning to become like this hotshot pilot. So this is very much like a Wing Commander, X-Wing kind of thing, or Elite, if you want to call it, because there's a lot of trading. So you get a ship. And you get a couple contacts, and you start trading and fighting and doing quests and upgrading your stuff and buying new ships and going to different planets and going to different solar systems. And it is the closest thing to a modern take on like kind of the Wing Commander Elite thing, other than like Elite Dangerous, which is like big and sort of Elite Dangerous is a little bigger and more complex than maybe you want. If you remember these games fondly,
yeah, for sure.
This is very user-friendly, like
digestible.
Landing on things is autopiloted. You can do the Wing Commander thing where you can just autopilot to the next interesting part of the flight. You don't have to sit there and just fly for minutes on end, unless you want to. You can. And it's more about the interaction with characters and the trading things at different places and going new places and exploring these things and being in these weird worlds. and blowing up pirates and taking their stuff. And so this is the closest any game has gotten since the 90s for me to recreating that feeling of sitting in my dorm room and playing like X-Wing or Wing Commander back in the day. And it's got a really a fun soundtrack, which is like this kind of weird like country rockabilly heavy metal kind of stuff. Like I don't know what the name of the genre is.
I was watching some trailers for this last night, and I was like, the music in this
it's
is
a real
odd.
Specific thing.
Yeah.
That, like apparently it's like a subgenre of a subgenre thing. Both of the Rebel Galaxies have that kind of sound. I think the guy who runs the company, I think it's only like 3 people, but they dig that music, so that's what's in here, and it just sets the tone really well. Because it does that thing. It does that Star Wars kind of Firefly thing. If you like Firefly, the tone on this is very similar. It's very Old West in space kind of thing.
When did that come out?
2 years ago, I would say.
Maybe a little longer than that.
Maybe it was an exclusive on Epic Game Store for like a year.
Yeah, it's not that old.
Yeah, it's only a couple years old.
Yep.
But it has that kind of like, space travel is commonplace to the point that people are bored by it. It's that thing where it's like no one finds it amazing they're on a space station with aliens. It's just that's what life. It's very blue collar. You're a space trucker basically. And I really like that aesthetic and that tone. And so they nail it real well. It's like it's imagine kind of a story about being out like doing like weird trucker stuff in the desert transmuted into space.
Yeah,
and that's what this is.
It seems like a space sim that isn't boring.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of space sims I've tried, it's like they're hard to get into.
And you can do stuff where you can figure out like what stuff's valuable and what isn't valuable in different star systems, and like work up your own kind of trading route, and like just like in the old games, and like kind of I got real rich real early by figuring a couple of good loops out, and like I was able to buy like a better ship, and then buying that better ship changes everything, like because it's like all of a sudden you can do all this other stuff. You don't have to run from the guys you had to run from before. You can just mow them down, and that gives you more stuff, and you can upgrade your ship more. And here's like at a certain point the curve of upgrading and becoming more powerful and being able to go new places and do new quests is really satisfying.
It's crazy that this was built by such a small team.
Yeah, it was a very small team.
Like, it's a very ambitious game to be built by just a few people.
And it's now on, I think it's on almost everything now. So it should be pretty easy to find. I don't think it's expensive either.
Yeah.
Last I remember it was...
I think I've seen it for $10 recently.
Yeah, it goes on sale, and even I don't think it's full price even when it came out.
Yeah.
I don't think. But,
My first time hearing of this.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah. Check it out.
Yeah, Double Damage
That's what the
games.
show's all about, and this segment's all about.
Yep.
Find out about stuff that you don't know about. However, my last
Double
pick,
Damage is 2 people.
2 people.
2 people made that.
House they had to have had.
I'm sure they had other people come into music or whatever, but the Double Damage is called Double Damage because it's 2 guys.
That's insane, dude.
So now they're gonna stick to 2 guys because that's the name of their company.
Oh, I guess now they're 5. They're 5-person now, a 5-person indie game studio. So
Double Damage plus.
not impressive anymore.
Wow.
5 people.
Wow.
5 people can do anything. We know that.
Quintuple damage now, I guess is what they're called. Okay, for my last pick, it is a franchise that I think most people have probably played because it's also been given away on PlayStation Plus and games with gold and things like that. And that franchise is Trials. Trials it's published by Ubisoft, so I was a little reluctant to say, oh, it's a B tier game, but it really is. It's really one of Ubisoft's kind of indie games, and it is just this side-scrolling platformer where you ride a motorcycle. That's really what it is, and it uses extremely realistic physics, and it is just highly addictive. It's not a platform where you're like, there's 80,000 levels and you can rush through them as quickly as possible. They take time, and you have to really ponder each little element of it. It starts out easy. It's just jumping over gaps and stuff like that. But eventually you get to the point where you have to jump and then stall and then just be on your back tire or just be on your front tire. And then eventually it transforms again and the worlds start moving and interacting, and you have to anticipate the physics of things that work like a seesaw. And it seems very simple. When you watch someone play it, you're like, oh, that seems really...
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's just like a motocross thing?
Then someone hands you the controller, and you're like, oh my gosh. There was probably a 9-month period at Game Trailers where after work, every night, people sat around and played Trials. And, you take turns. That's the other thing that's cool about it, too, is it's one of those old school kind of cooperative games where you're just passing the controller. There aren't enough of those anymore, and that used to be a staple of old school gaming, was passing the controller. You get your chance, and then if you messed it up, you had to pass the controller to the next guy. This game is perfect for that. Because each try, sometimes a try may only last 5 or 10 seconds if you bail on that very first obstacle. So I got really addicted to this game. It's a very simple concept, and you've also seen it kind of replicated in other ways. Like there's that one game that came out that was like a big streaming game where there's like it's like a dude in a pot. You know what I'm talking about? And you just had to climb. It was literally just a guy with arms in a pot.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember what the name of the game is. Someone in chat will probably tell me what it is. But that game was obviously inspired from Trials. And that game was one of those games where you get all the way to the top and you could fall all the way to the bottom, which gave it a different kind of angle. It made it great for streaming, in all honesty. But it was the same kind of concept that you get in Trials. I've had a lot of fun with this franchise. They've released probably...
Getting over it,
yeah. And they've released probably 5 of these at this point.
There's been a lot of them.
Yeah, and they still managed...
It's funny if you go back to the old ones where it's like they really were originally just sort of like they were crazy loops and stuff that wouldn't be on a real motocross track, but it was pretty. And now it's just like, no, you're skydiving out of a jet fighter into a science fiction world onto an aircraft carrier. It's like, there's no.
They've kind of run out of ideas at this point,
or they're willing to accept any ideas,
right?
Which is kind of great.
That's a glass half full approach to it, I think.
I mean, Trials is a winner on the gameplay side.
Yeah,
you don't really need to change anything. You just need to give me more.
Yeah,
and they do. And I think you're right that like even though it comes from Ubisoft, there's a weird feeling of like scrappy indie to it. There's a feeling of like,
because they could dump a ton of money into it if they wanted to,
but like there's still a weird feeling of like, even the more recent ones, there's that feeling like, are you guys just making this and they don't know you're doing it? It's like they're in a closet up in Montreal somewhere and
we'll send it out.
They'll tell you when we let the Trials team work in there, no one knows they're there. We siphon money off of the Assassin's Creed budget to like give it to them, and nobody in France knows.
Yep. So there you go. Those are our picks for B tier games that deserve a lot more recognition than maybe they should. Steve, I'm seeing the rave reviews in the chat. People love having you on the show. You definitely have a passion for games that's contagious.
Thank you.
It's been great talking games with you. Thank you very much for your very generous pledge and just supporting us. You've been a patron since the beginning.
Yes.
And it's good to meet someone face to face and be able to thank them instead of trying to do it on chat or be a post on Sifted or whatever.
For sure.
I just really appreciate you and everything you've done for us, and I hope that your liquor does really well. And here's one last chance to give it another plug.
Oh, well, listen, again, guys, thanks for having me. I'm going to head out, but yeah, it's LS Cream. So you can go on creamls.com. And so it's creamls.com. If you want to order, we ship directly to your house through our third-party suppliers. So it's not made in my basement. It's made in a distillery and
not made in your bathtub.
Yes, bathtub cream liquor.
Where can somebody find it if they want to try it?
No, I mean, so yeah.
Do you have a website they can go and order?
Yeah, of course. Or? Yeah, no. So creamls.com. You have all the information there.
Creamls.com.
Yep, that's it. And and if you just if you're in Florida, you can find it in Total Wine and in Sam's Club also. And in New York, we have a bunch of accounts, but we have a list on the website and so forth. And so I'm going to take my stickers and I'm going to go.
Thanks, Steve. It was great having you on the show, man.
Thanks, you guys. Be in touch.
Yep, and good luck with all your liquor, man.
Thank you.
On your trip throughout LA. All right. That was awesome. That worked out far better than I ever anticipated, but I think it's all because of Steve. He's a good dude, and he knows games, and he's passionate about them. It makes a big, big difference. All right, it's time for us to move on with the rest of the show. We're going to talk next about what is undoubtedly the biggest game to come out this week, and that game is Guardians of the Galaxy. Matt, how much do you like the films?
I like the films very much.
Do you?
Yeah.
Like all of them equally? Or do you have a favorite?
Both of them? I think I like 2 a little more.
2 a little more?
I think
is that typical?
It depends. Like I think
the first one reviewed better.
Reviewed better, but I think the themes of the second one are a little more developed and speak more. You know, there's a lot of fatherhood stuff going on in there, and it speaks to me on a certain level. I love the first. First one's a great example of like how you can do. The first one's a great example of how you can take a complete group of unknowns characters and turn them into a phenomenon. Because even I had to look up what the Guardians of the Galaxy were when they announced that movie, and now you've got everybody knows who Rocket. No everybody knows who Rocket and Groot and Star-Lord and Gamora are, and it's like I never saw that coming. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So but I like both. I think they're both really good. I'm looking forward to the third one in 2023.
Is that when it's coming?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're about to start shooting.
It seems like they have an IP for life now.
Well, I mean, James Gunn says he's done after 3.
Oh, really?
Obviously, they can
do any more.
Obviously, they can do more. I think those characters will float around through the MCU forever. But he's going to basically do what I think you consider a trilogy, and that'll be that.
Huh. So here we are with Guardians of the Galaxy, the game. Matt, where does this fall into the movie, the plot behind the movie?
Nowhere. It's a
separate.
It's its own universe.
It's its own universe.
Yeah, it pulls some from the comics, but it's its own thing. So this is not in continuity with the films, or I don't think anything.
So that's why I'm asking you, because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, where does this? Is it a side thing that happens?
It's its own thing.
Okay.
It's these are new versions of these characters. Like obviously they're the same characters, but they are new versions. Like I am not super familiar with the comic versions of them outside of the broader strokes, but as far as I know, Star-Lord did not get his name in the comics from a metal band he really liked. It's
which is how it's set up here.
And in the movies, his mom called him Star-Lord because he was the son of a Star-Lord, of a
Well, it does say in this that your dad's like an alien.
He knows he knows his dad is a celestial of some kind. Although in the comics, it's not Ego. It's not it's a different alien whose name I can't remember, who floats. He's like a kind of a king of another empire or something. He's not a celestial like Kurt Russell is in the movies, but he's still got powers because of it, because he's half whatever that alien is, and that's kind of his super ability in the game. So this is a new version of everybody, but you'll recognize them all. It is fairly early in their career as the Guardians of the Galaxy. They don't really trust each other very much yet.
Yeah.
It takes place after a big war, which I believe did take place in the comics, which I haven't read. But it's a war between basically the entire galaxy and the Chitauri.
Yeah, they talk about that constantly throughout the game.
Which is the Chitauri. The Chitauri you probably know as the aliens that invade New York at the end of the first Avengers movie, which were taken from the Ultimate Universe. And then the Chitauri were brought into the main Marvel universe as an antagonist group later on, after that movie was a giant hit. They are essentially a warlike, like mindlessly warlike offshoot of the Skrulls. And so this is very early in the game. You're running through a quarantine zone that is basically the site of a giant battle between the Chitauri and the resistance forces, which was an alliance of basically everybody. And in this game, Thanos aligned himself with the Chitauri.
They throw around Thanos a lot in this. I do wonder if that's intentional to try to remind people, hey, this is part of the MCU. And
it was not part of the MCU. So.
Well, I mean, I think they try to...
They want to mention the characters that people would know.
Right.
Like everybody knows
That's
Thanos.
what I was getting
Everyone
at.
associates Thanos with the Guardians because of the movies. So they are definitely calling out names that you know, but they're also making references. There's a bunch of references to Fin Fang Foom, which is very funny because that's an extremely obscure character that's a favorite among comic fans because he's ridiculous. He's an alien dragon who wears giant purple underwear and smashes stuff around. And some people think he's like a mystical dragon, but he's actually just a big alien who looks like a dragon and just wants to eat. And he's
just like all the rest of us, Matt.
He's a nice running gag in this. When Peter first wakes up in his room, he's got a giant poster of Dazzler on the wall, which is a nice little nod that hey, we got the X-Men back.
Yeah.
And also who the hell knows who Dazzler is? I know who Dazzler is because was a big X-Men fan. Yep. I read her graphic novel back in the day.
Is she not a thing anymore?
She has not really been a thing in mainstream media. No, I mean she's been back in the comics again now that kind of the mutants have taken some center stage again.
I know her very well from being a comic book.
Yeah, well, she was very prominent in the 80s, and
Yeah.
then she vanished in the 90s.
I didn't know that.
Longshot and Dazzler basically disappeared for a long
Interesting.
time. Why? I don't know. I think
Well,
they,
I also disappeared during that time period.
right.
from
Well,
comics.
I think she was seen as 270s because she was basically a disco star who wore flare pants and roller skates.
Yeah.
I mean, she was of a time.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see that there. There's a lot of good references. I mean, the beginning of the game is a flashback to when Peter was 13. And
I mean, there's many of
his
those.
room
they keep
is
going back.
Yeah, his
to
room is a giant 80s nostalgia bomb. There's a ColecoVision in there.
Yeah.
There's a
and it's all licensed stuff.
because it's all stuff they own. There's a lot of stuff they own. They own Chewbacca's in there, so there's Star Wars references in this.
Yeah.
There's a Tron poster.
Yeah, there's an amazing 80s soundtrack.
Incredible soundtrack. The soundtrack's great.
I mean, literally, it's like GTA level soundtrack.
And it's interesting also in that Peter is taken into space a little older in this than in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So he's progressed a little further in terms of pop culture. So the New Kids on the Block are in this. Like there's a Hangin' Tough is on the soundtrack, which I learned when you're fighting, if you get a maximum, I think it's momentum boost, you can do what's called a huddle up, and everybody you do a weird little thing and it superpowers everybody, and then you play a song that's on his
the huddle ups are so dumb and
it's
weird.
very weird, but it started to play Hangin' Tough while I was shooting this giant squid thing, and I'm just like, I appreciate this. I'm into that.
Oh yeah, because after you do the huddle, it fires off one of these awesome 80s songs, and then basically it plays for the whole battle.
Yeah, it plays for the rest of the scene basically, and you get
Matt, there's
everybody
your favorite
superpowered.
scanning in this game.
Oh, I like the scanning. Is good. Yeah, it's solid, and they make fun of you for it too.
They do. Yeah.
He's like, I can hear the visor. What are you doing? Like, it's like, oh, I'm just looking at stuff.
I think the weirdest thing about this game is it was hard for me to figure out for a long time, like, what was the goal?
To guard the galaxy.
I mean, I guess.
The goal is pretty much to move forward.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a very narrative-driven game.
I mean, eventually you meet like an old flame, and a bunch of stuff happens. And
stuff happens. That's basically
but there's no, like, the game doesn't start and there's like, hey, here's this enemy that you're trying to defeat.
I mean, your goal is to, basically, they're trying to make their name as essentially a mercenary group, as a problem. They're basically trying to make their name as the A-team. Yeah. Like they want to be known as people you can call and hire for a tough job and they'll get it done. Mm-hmm. But they can't. They have a ton of trouble making that happen because they're all a bunch of traumatized, insecure dipshits. Basically, they have a lot of trouble working together. And there's some light decision making in the game, and part of your decision making is are you going to make Peter be a leader who tries to rally them and make them all work as a team, or are you going to be part of the chaos and
are you going to let it descend
and
into
chaos? And be like a whiner and a complainer and encourage the dissent in the ranks.
I always pick the other option. I always pick the everybody needs to calm
everybody
down.
Be a team. There's a lot of stuff with people being overconfident about stuff. The difficulty levels are called we got this, or we got this probably, or we don't got this. And then they're saying that all the time. Even when you get to the Nova Corps people are like, yeah, we got it. Everyone's sure they can handle everything, but one of the big themes seems to be you only handle stuff together. And the gameplay reflects that too. It's interesting. I really like everything this game is after, but it's so weirdly rough around the edges.
The game is just weird in general, Matt.
I will say though, this is much more what the Avengers game should have been.
I'd agree with that.
This is the kind of thing. In concept, this is the thing they should have tried to do.
It actually reminds me a lot of ways of the Avengers game, though.
There are elements there, yeah.
Because it like the Avengers game, it feels like they had all these ideas. And maybe they ended up throwing some of them out or whatever, but they still snapped some of them together that maybe shouldn't have been snapped together. It feels like a Frankenstein-style game. There's some stuff in this thing that is just so weird. There are these really long walk and talks that go on, and the writing in this game in general is great. Amazingly good. The banter, they nail it.
Banter's excellent. I will say, I had a real bad first impression of this because the kid who voices young Peter is awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every line he says is bad.
Yeah.
The rest of the cast is fantastic. The rest of the cast is excellent. They sound just enough like the movie actors to remind you of who the character is, but not enough like them that they sound like they're doing bad impressions of the movie actors.
Yeah.
And they have their own character. They're not exactly the movie characters, but there's enough there if you
They're
really
close enough.
Close enough. They also, you can find movie costumes for all of them if you just want them to look like the movie characters anyway. It's all very fun. Like all the Groot stuff is really funny. Rocket's great. Early on, I think that part of the problem with the decision making stuff is that like they want you to decide between side with one crew member or the one character or the other, but like Rocket is the most reasonable person in like the first third of the game every time, and it's just,
But then he turns out to
then
be
he
the
turns
most
to be a little more,
unreasonable.
then he gets a little chaotic about things.
Yeah. Again, to your point, there's these weird, rough edges. Like, there's bugs in this game. Like, I had events that wouldn't trigger. Like, you're supposed to kill everybody, and then it triggers the next event. I had killed everybody. It didn't trigger. I had a decision that I had to make that ended up staying on the screen until I basically rebooted my PS5. Just little weird stuff like that.
I haven't had anything much like that. I've had hard crashes, several hard crashes. Luckily, the game saves about every 5 seconds,
It does,
so you don't lose anything.
Yeah.
Most of the problems I've had have been cosmetic. I would say like there's been a bunch of stuff where like you command someone to do something and they just teleport there. Like you tell Drax to do something like throw a rock or something, he just blinks over there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff where like the characters, especially Rocket, are shooting or attacking in the completely wrong direction. Like they're just attacking a wall, but it's registering as them hitting an enemy in the middle of the fight kind of thing. Which, as long as I'm still getting the benefit of them fighting, I don't really mind, but it just looks bad. There's a section where you have to drag a cart across a bridge for a long time.
That walk and talk is really weird.
Walk and talk is I mean, the walk and talk is entertaining, but the problem is like,
I can't tell whether I'm in control or not.
there's that, but also Peter is pulling the cart, and Peter will move, and then the cart will kind of jerk ahead. Like there's no smoothness. It doesn't look like a person pulling anything. It just looks like the two models in a video game sort of trying to keep up with each other.
Yeah.
Groot tends to like break his inverse kinematics a lot. Like he doesn't like stand on the floor a lot. Like he sort of like his.
I've also seen like characters like get confused about where they're standing, and they'll keep adjusting themselves
and
while
like
they're standing still.
And like every once in a while, this game is gorgeous.
It
like
is.
there's a couple close-ups of certain characters that I'm like, oh, that looks photo real in places. Like when you first see what's her name, Hellbender? Is it the woman you're trying to bring in the monster to? When it first shows a close-up kind of on her throne in the shadow, and you see like her lower mouth. Her
Rocket.
lower
This shot right here.
It
Rocket.
looks incredible.
Like,
like there's a couple shots where I'm like, is that CG? No, it's just the game engine. It looks incredible. And then other times it's like, I mean, it's fine, but it doesn't.
Sometimes the faces look a little wooden, the eyes look a little dead.
Yeah, I will say I hate Star-Lord's face.
Yeah.
I don't like what Peter Quill looks like in this game, just design-wise.
I guess.
It's not a technical question. I just don't think that looks like that character.
I agree.
Not that I needed to look like Chris Pratt, but he doesn't look like any version of Star-Lord I've seen in my experience, and I just don't recognize him. As the others, obviously they're all alien people.
The pacing of this game, impeccable.
Yeah.
There's no downtime. There's no moment where you're like, oh, this is boring.
No, even when you're walking around the ship, there's constant banter, there's constant stuff happening, there's constant
and it
everything.
just shoots you from one crazy scenario to another. I never found myself bored playing this game. My biggest complaint, I think, about it, though, is the combat. The combat feels weirdly loosey-goosey, disconnected, but at the same time, the team element of it is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you can hold the L1 and it brings up the menu of all your teammates. And then you select whatever button corresponds to that teammate. And then as you play, you unlock new abilities for each of those teammates. And then depending on which ones you have unlocked, your next button press determines what they actually do. But you can figure out all these awesome combos to do between all the characters. Like Groot, he will hold enemies in place. And so if an enemy is near death, you use Groot to hold him down. Everybody piles on, and you start using all the other commands.
Yep. And I will say they let those abilities be those abilities even in boss fights, which I really appreciate. Like a lot of with tougher enemies, including bosses, and like even the guy you're fighting right now in the B-roll here, they have a stamina bar. underneath the health bar, and if you fill the stamina bar up, like so many Square Enix games, they get stunned, they get staggered, and you can do extra damage or do special moves on them, and like Drax did there. So you know, choosing moves that will stagger more, so you can get better hits on it, sort of, and that is obviously a big deal in bosses. But there's a boss fight where like this thing is slapping tentacles down at you, and if it runs out of stamina and gets staggered, it'll leave its tentacle down on the ground, and you can all kind of hammer it for a while. And then of course it does, you know, it recovers and it goes to take its tentacle away. But if you hit Groot's grab move, it'll bind it down for a few more seconds, and you can get some more shots on it. I'm like, that's great, like, because a lot of games would just not make Groot's ability not work that way. But you even see it try to take it up and then get pulled back down. And I thought that was a really cool touch.
There's lots of little stuff like that in this. Like the team stuff is better than Avengers.
You can do team up combos like very organically. You can use Star-Lord has his own abilities with you click L3, and he has his own abilities, and you can do those to
and then there's environmental
synergize.
Stuff.
He has environmental stuff. He has elemental ammo on his gun to
you've seen me using the ice.
Yeah, it's
shot.
There's but it's also that is also like kind of what you said about how there were all these ideas that are all getting crammed into the game, and every once in a while you're like, there's a lot in this.
Is.
Like,
well, like even the environmental cues, like sometimes the triangle button will just pop up on something in the environment. You can press it, and one of your teammates will like slice a cable to have stuff fall down, or they'll pick up something really heavy and throw it at enemies. There is just so much going on in this game, but like the melee feels awful. But then every once in a while it will do something awesome, just like context sensitive stuff.
And it feels like they're trying to not super encourage you to use melee because Star-Lord's a range character, but the
I
shooting
use the
doesn't
freeze
feel...
ray to freeze them. I slide in and then drop kick them, and a lot of times one shot it'll just explode them. So
I tend to keep my distance, but I also think the shooting doesn't feel amazing.
It doesn't.
Either.
It feels like the gun takes too long to come up and start firing.
One thing I did definitely do is, I had to get used to the fact you have to hold the trigger instead of just tapping, because sometimes I'll tap it because I'm used to burst fire. I'm used to sort of thinking that tap it, short bursts keeps it more accurate, and that's not true in this game. The other thing is I had to turn off the ability to break lock by moving the character.
Oh, yeah, I turned it off too.
Because otherwise he loses his lock too easy and gets so chaotic in battle I forget I'm not locked into something, and I will waste like my charge shot or something.
Active reload in the game.
There's an active reload.
We always complain about that isn't copied enough from Gears of War. It's in there, and very effective, I would add. If you do an active reload, a lot of times you can drop a whole enemy's health bar with one shot.
And if you can time it so that they get staggered right before you get the active reload, you can do huge damage, even to something very powerful. And there's weak spots on enemies that have been staggered too, like on certain ones. Like, there's a lot happening.
There is a lot. Like, I feel like they had all these ideas, and they're like, which one should we cut? Let's not cut any of them.
Let's not cut any. Let's just put them all in there.
And see what happens.
Even with the traversal and kind of environmental puzzle solving stuff, there's a lot. Like, all four of them can do different things in different situations, and they come up with new ways constantly of like how to combine those different abilities and create new puzzles, and how you need to use Drax to do this, and then Gamora can get up there and do this, and then that will open a thing for Groot to do this. It's like you said, there's never a slowdown. There's never a moment where you're just not doing anything. Things are always moving. And even when you go, you do the classic exploration thing where you go, oh, we were clearly supposed to go this direction, but I bet there's a goodie in like a hidden thing in this direction. They all make fun of you, and they're like, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? We're going this way.
It's all written.
It's like, oh, there he goes, going to stick his hands in something again. It's really well done.
And it is a linear game. There's no open world. There's no place that you can go. The RPG elements are very light. Like each character ends up getting an extra 2 or 3 attacks beyond what they start with.
This is an action game. First and
it's
foremost.
Not an action RPG. It is an old school linear action adventure, and I really have enjoyed it. Like, I've had a blast with this game. I've had more fun with this game than almost any other game this year, Matt.
Yeah, it
has flaws. Like, there are problems,
but it's shockingly satisfying.
It's just a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, it keeps you going. You want to see what happens next, and constantly has interesting characters. It fills in the backstory of his old girlfriend, and and slowly you get flashbacks to expand on the opening flash, because the flashbacks to when he was a kid constantly end at a certain point and come back, and then you'll flashback later to where you left off and continue.
Story,
And it's you can look around that house and see all the things. It's kind of a neat. I'm guessing that.
I mean, if you're a kid from the '80s like us, this game has extra value too.
Oh yeah, from all that. And it was like I can't figure out quite what year it's supposed to be.
Me either.
But it seems like somewhere in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
Although it's a little, it must be mid because like the other touch I really love is you would walk over near the ColecoVision, a huge cloud of dust puffs up because he hasn't touched it in forever.
Yeah, but the soundtrack is amazing.
Soundtrack's
Again, if
incredible.
you're from the '80s, the soundtrack is just incredible.
It's not. I will say it's not really comparable to the film soundtracks. Because the film soundtracks are more '70s classic rock
you're right.
stuff.
Yeah, they are.
This
more
is
70s.
more like
It's 80s.
'80s stuff, which I like. Obviously, I like that too. I mean, that's great too because he's a little. He was born a little later, or he was a little older when he got taken in this game.
Yeah.
So. The nostalgia is a little later, which may be intentional because most gamers, even the oldest gamers, are going to be more 80s nostalgia than 70s.
Yeah.
But it really works.
I've had a blast with this game. Mm-hmm. I really have. There are some other weird quirks, like no one can revive you, but you can revive them, and they don't revive each other either. You have to do all the reviving for some
Well, they
reason.
don't like each other, so.
but you, I don't know. It seems like a weird contrivance. And there's weird stuff. Like there's been moments in this game where I thought there was a bug and it wasn't. Like it's just the way that like they shot, like had the camera positioned for one cinematic or whatever. There's weird stuff in this, but it has not deterred me 1 minute from continuing to play it and finish it. It's also a pretty large game.
Oh, and there's early in the very first area, there's a whole thing where you have to like have a competition with Rocket to like kill these nests of things.
To shoot
there's a little scoreboard thing.
Yeah.
There were certain sections where he would suddenly get points, and I'm like, "What are you shooting? Where are you shooting?" And I couldn't find it, and so I would restart the checkpoint to see what he was
you were
doing.
restarting.
I redid the checkpoint. I'm like, "Where did you do?" I was trying to find what he shot so I could shoot it first. I couldn't find, and then eventually I would look around, and as soon as I turned my back, he'd shoot it. I turned back and he wasn't even looking at anything. I'm like, where is you? I never found it.
He's cheating.
And so what I did is like, because there was other ones up in this area I had to get and shoot before we moved on to the next area. But if I turned around to do that, he would shoot the invisible targets and get points. So I did the whole platforming section staring at him, like jumping backwards to like not. And I'm like, that's weird.
That is
like,
weird. They're cheating, basically.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But I have had a blast with this game. I wholeheartedly recommend you buy it at full price.
Yeah, it's real good.
I feel like this is a game that's been like.
And I think it's gonna. I think the rough edges
radar.
are gonna get smoothed out.
I'm sure.
These don't feel like inherent issues. They feel like things that can be patched.
Yeah. It's not like Cyberpunk or anything like that. And it's nowhere near as bad as Cyberpunk. As far as I don't want
this character. I love her.
Yeah.
Like, she's great. Like,
I don't want to mislead people into thinking it's like a bug fest or anything. It's not.
No,
There's
it's
weird
just
things.
it just has that slight. Where you play something and it's like it's just not quite polished to the point that you're confident it's not going to crash in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, but look,
But again, it saves so often that I've had like 3 hard crashes and I think I've only lost like a maximum of 30 seconds.
Yeah, my crashes like a lot of the bugs I've had, like they kind of fixed themselves. Like I didn't really lose progress. It was more a case of like this thing is stuck on the screen. I'm going to go eat dinner. I'm going to turn off my PS5. When I come back, my save is where it was, and now the thing that was on the screen is gone. So I didn't have like a lot of problems in that vein. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of fun with this game. That's really what it comes down to. It's fun. It's a roller coaster ride that you go on with people that you end up caring about. That's the other part. Like the writing is so good. Like I cared about everybody in this game.
Yeah, and it replicates that from the movie. Even while being its own thing.
They do. They nail the move. They nail the tone of the movie and what makes the movies great. It really does. Even though the characters look a little different, they sound a little different. I got the same
and they
vibe
act a little
from it.
different at times. But like they take all the best parts and kind of synthesize it. And again, if the Avengers game had been this, 10 million copies.
Yeah.
Like if this had been the Avengers, it would be amazing. Like the only real downside thing that I would change if I was going to adapt this to Avengers was I wouldn't want to lock you into playing one character.
Yeah.
The fact that you can only play Star-Lord is a slight ding, I think, if you're not interested in Star-Lord, like if you'd rather play Gamora or something.
But you're kind of playing as the other
you
characters.
have control over it. Yeah, the teamwork thing works enough that I don't mind it. And Star-Lord is definitely the middle. Peter is definitely the center of the story.
Yeah, for sure.
Not always true in the movies.
Yeah.
But in this case, he really is the glue that holds the team together and is trying to. That's the other thing is like he is this Peter Quill is a more mature person than the Chris Pratt Peter Quill.
Yeah.
Partly because he's been through a war. You know, he's been through some stuff, and the movie version hasn't. He's not necessarily good at doing any of it, but he does have better intentions, I think, than the movie version does.
Yeah.
He's not as much of a man-child. He's more of just sort of a screw-up.
Yeah.
Who has the best intentions.
This B-roll just reminded me, though, that the animation in this game at times is really bad.
Yeah, visually it is a real mixed bag.
It is.
Sometimes it is one of the
Stunning.
best looking things I've seen all year. And sometimes it's just
But like
that's
sometimes,
a PS4 game.
Yeah, like
you know?
sometimes after like you're defeating a boss, it'll cut to a cinematic where it shows like your teammates like finishing off the boss. Like a lot of times, like the physics just don't look real. Like they just haven't. The animators at the studio or whoever is handling it just hasn't quite figured out how that momentum is supposed to really work.
Or more, it's like I think it's more because I know what you're talking about, but I think it's more like they just didn't get to polish that
could
element
be.
of it. Like I think all those because I've seen all the stuff like work properly together in some of those finishing scenes, also just during fights.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do, and sometimes it's just like Rocket's facing the other way and he's shooting a wall, but the bullets are spinning around and hitting the thing to kill it. Like
I'm talking about like
it's all a matter of
they'll do like a little flourish, like they'll jump to the boss, finish him off, do a backflip off the boss, and then like land on a tree and then drop, and like it just doesn't look realistic. Like when they land on the tree, like they don't slide a little bit. There's just these little tells that just let you know that it's fake, basically. But otherwise, I have really enjoyed playing this game. I'm glad that I took the time to play it. I highly recommend that you buy it and you play it. And I'm not even like the world's biggest Guardians of the Galaxy fan. I like it. And I really enjoyed both films, but I'm not like a fanboy for it at all. And I really enjoyed this. Just from the minute I started playing until I walked in here today to record GameFace.
Yeah, just Square Enix, go ahead and use this as your template.
Yeah,
this is how you do a Marvel game.
And look, the Avengers campaign was pretty good.
Yeah, but imagine if it had been more like that. You know, this is. You can see how if they'd taken that approach more than this approach more than what they did, like it could have been way better.
Yeah.
Like if you'd focused on, making that campaign something of this level versus like your stupid grindy endgame crap and not having the levels be too big or complex because they have to double 14 times over for some generic quest daily thing.
Yep.
Like imagine how much better that would have been.
A lot better. It would have been like this, which it is great. I really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy. That is definitely a thumbs up for me, Matt, for you as well.
For sure.
Also, I would say one of the most pleasant surprises of 2021.
Yeah, this could have gone real wrong. I mean, I did like more or less what I saw at E3. It didn't make me super excited.
Yeah.
But because part of it was because the thing that really makes this game sing is going through the overall experience of the narrative and the characters. And you're not going to get that until you play it.
Yep, absolutely. We did get to see a note here in chat. Vincent says, as an update, you made the right decision not to watch State of Play. I knew that was going to be the case. That's another reason why we didn't go to it. I saw people were a little angry. They're like, but it sounded like you had it set up. We kind of had it set up. I tried to set it up so that we could do it live, but there's no way for Matt.
We wouldn't have been able to hear it.
We wouldn't be able to hear it. And so can we do commentary over something that we can't hear? We'd have been like, oh, there's whatever.
That's a thing.
There's that game. Like, yeah. And like, I thought maybe they might show Elden Ring, but it sounds like they did not.
Yeah, somebody earlier in the chat gave it a D.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it delivered.
A couple questions people are asking about Guardians of the Galaxy. How much do your choices matter? They do matter.
Yeah, there's some of that. There's a telltale sort of system where the characters will remember what you chose.
And it does affect. And here's the other thing, too. Like, you can choose to not answer.
Right.
Some of them. And if you do not answer, sometimes you get screwed. Like, you will not get stuff like that you were supposed to get, or you'll miss like a whole conversation tree that you're supposed to have with somebody else. That was what I ended up using like the save scumming for, was to see what the impact was of one answer or another, and some of the stuff doesn't play out for a long time.
Yeah, there's some delayed stuff, and there's certain it does. It matters, I'd say, from what I can see, it matters as much as like your average Telltale game.
Yeah, it's meta. It's not going to completely change what happens.
You're not going to go to a different planet or anything.
And you're not going to get like 8 different endings either.
But you are going to get different relationships between the characters. You are going to have you're going to have this thing on your ship instead of this thing on your ship.
Yep.
You're going to have a different objective with the character you screwed over versus the character you supported.
That kind of stuff.
It's that sort of thing.
Yep. We both loved it. So we both recommend that you go out and buy it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. The game's also quite large. And I would say that maybe it's a little too long for the upgrade elements that they give you. Like I ended up upgrading everything.
Yeah, I was surprised by how fast I was upgrading.
Yeah,
probably because I think the combat's pretty easy to do well.
Yeah.
So like, because you do get bonuses for better momentum and getting high, you build that combo meter up, and like I get way up there every time.
Yeah.
The combat is a little overcomplicated at times, but it's not difficult.
It's not.
It's and it's not like.
Once you learn how to use your elemental attacks,
the elemental stuff and which things synergize, which teammate attacks synergize with which ones and stuff, like it all works really well.
It feels good though, like when you're in your Star-Lord, so you're basically a ranged character.
Yeah.
So you're like lighting them up from afar, and then you tap that L1 and you just go tap 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 and send all 4 of them in at once and just watch the madness happen. It's pretty awesome. And then almost always you'll get like a cue where you'll hit like circle and triangle at once to do like, sometimes it's 2 characters will finish it, sometimes it's just 1, or you'll get like an environmental cue where you tap triangle and it'll send up Gamora, who will cut like a wire and this huge thing will come down and like finish them off. There's lots of moments like that that just kind of happen organically. It's just a really fun game. I had a lot of fun playing this game. Again, to me, one of the most pleasant surprises of 2021. Guardians of the Galaxy, go out and get it. I could also understand, Matt, why some people would be reluctant.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's
after Avengers,
this definitely after Avengers, and also it does. No one's really made a Guardians game other than the Telltale game. It has the stink of licensed game on it, if you just from conceptually.
Yeah,
but I think they pulled it off
absolutely
very well, and. Yeah, I think it worked. The chat's talking about the state of play. The Bugsnax DLC.
Is that the highlight of it?
Yeah, I think the highlight. So Vincent seems to indicate they closed with Little Devil Inside.
I would have liked to check that.
But he says D was generous.
Wow. Okay, we made the right call in not going over there live then, because it would have been a total pain in the butt. That would have totally screwed up the show. It would have made Steve's exit awkward. Yeah, it just didn't work out, and I think it all worked out for the better.
A new Star Ocean.
Once upon a time, that would have been a big deal.
That would have been a deal, but
not anymore.
They have lost all their integrity, and I am deep in the faithlessness at this point.
Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Halo. Halo, or 343 Industries showed us Halo Infinite's campaign months ago and was just murdered online for the initial debut, and rightfully so. It did not look great. It almost looked like they were showing us like the Xbox One version of the campaign, even though they weren't. They actually, it was running on Series X. It was
the Series X, but you wouldn't really know.
It looked like you wouldn't know it.
And probably because they were using realistic lighting techniques that, unfortunately, realistic lighting doesn't look very interesting.
Right.
Like
in a sci-fi game.
Yeah, you gotta heighten that stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta make it cinematic.
Yep. So 343 took it to heart, as was shown this week when
I also believe that a fair chunk of 343 already knew it was a problem. I feel like there must have been dissent.
I'm sure
on that team of like it should. Like, I think it was a Sonic the Hedgehog the movie situation where like the wrong people won the fight, and as soon as it made contact with actual human audiences, it was like, oh no, you gotta go with Plan B. Listen to the other people that have been telling you that was a bad idea for the last year.
And this week we got Plan B. They showed basically an overview of the campaign in Halo Infinite. Instead of just showing a chunk of gameplay, there was actually some narration that explained some things, and I think everyone's impressions of it just took a drastic turn.
Oh, we got a Guardians of the Galaxy dev in the chat.
Well, really?
He worked on Guardians of the Galaxy. Simonized23. He was a dev on Guardians for 3+ years, responsible for facial animations for in-game and cinematics.
Wow.
That's cool.
Well, congratulations. You did a great job. We love your game, Simonized23. Excellent work, man. I hope the game does well. It deserves to do well. But let's talk about Halo. Did you watch this, Matt?
I only saw a little bit. I didn't realize they'd actually shown it until yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So I watched a little bit of it. It certainly looks better.
I mean, in addition to looking much better, they also provided a bunch of details about the campaign, and it is a huge departure from what people are used to with Halo. As you know, Cortana is dead, or is she? A big
Cortana's rampant.
Right, right. Is that the word that they use? Rampant?
That's what they've used since Marathon.
Okay.
Yeah. That the concept of a rampant AI goes back to the Marathon games.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which are not really canon to Halo, but they're canon. 343 previously Bungie, all their games took place in the same universe, even their weird like modern day stuff. So like. Durandal was the rampant AI that was the villain in the Marathon games, and they get into, especially in the novelizations in Halo, the idea of Cortana going rampant, the idea of AIs being deactivated after a certain number of years because they will outgrow their parameters and kind of become sentient and go crazy because they are not real things, but they're sort of trapped in sort of this cyber world sort of thing. And the question for the last several games has been, is Cortana rampant? Is she the bad guy now?
Yeah, and that's a question that will be answered. That was your new AI, by the way. One of the first things you do in the game is you get your new AI, and they're called the new AI is called the Weapon. Not quite as catchy as Cortana, but so that's one of the first things that you do in the game. The crux of the plot.
Also a little awkward if you're Scottish, I would think.
Yeah. The crux of the plot is that humanity is fighting for survival against the Banished, which is a new sort of enemy type.
Can I just say, also this comes on the heels of seeing the Wheel of Time trailer this morning. Stop naming things like general proper nouns.
Yeah.
The Banished sounds very Destiny to me.
It does.
The Tower, the Shadow, the Darkness.
I mean, you would argue, though, that Destiny took that stuff from Halo first.
Somewhat,
right?
But it's just like, come on.
I'm sure 343 would argue that.
Just give me a weird alien name and call it a day. Like, not everything has to be like an ominous thing with a definite article in front of it.
Well, the Banished that's taken control of the mysterious Zeta Halo, and it's up to Spartan 117 to come to the rescue and wipe out the Banished and take control of the Halo. 343 is calling it the biggest campaign in franchise history. Typically, the campaigns in Halo games end around 10 hours. So it's not like that's all that tough of a target to beat, honestly.
Well, actually, the problem with that is that like I can't remember a Halo campaign that I wasn't ready for it to end.
After 8 hours. Yeah. Sometimes.
Maybe 2. 2 was pretty short.
Yeah.
And
which one was the one where you had like the long drive in the Warthog at the end? Was that 2?
Oh, you're going to need to be more specific. I mean, I think
that's the whole ending is driving
the end of
the
2
Warthog.
Is like an escape in the Warthog as everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
That's 2. Yeah.
That I thought Halo 2 dragged a little bit at the end.
It's only like 5 hours long, though.
Well, maybe now it is after you speedrun it. But when I was playing it,
I played that with Jason Chung co-op, and it took us like 5 hours.
Yeah.
I think we did redo that Warthog thing a lot, though. That was
I played it
frustrating.
By myself at the review event, and all of us took like 10 hours to finish it. But after it's out, and if you ever get stuck or you don't know where to go, it's easy to figure out what you're supposed to do. Always cuts down some of the time on the play time.
I mean, the longest one to me is always going to be 4 because I hated that game.
Oh.
I don't know how long Halo 4 is. I just consider it the longest.
However long it was too long.
However long it was the longest Halo.
So a big part of the plot as well is trying to figure out what happened to Cortana. You can spawn vehicles into the open world. It is an open world game, first of all. Big deal.
Which is something that I think Halo's always wanted to be.
I mean, they felt like they were
Yeah,
open
they did
world
their
games.
best impression, even from the beginning.
But technically they weren't. Now it is, and I think, it makes sense because you're right. If they could have done it a long time ago, they would have.
Yeah.
It would have been an open world game a long time ago. What else did we learn? Oh, so it definitely, since it's in an open world, this is one thing I would say is it is copying a lot of the most popular open world designs. So it's basically like, well, I had a word for it that I came up with and I completely forgot it. That sucks. I had a catchy name for comparing it to Assassin's Creed. But anyway, it basically borrows a lot of Ubisoft's elements. There are strongholds that you have to take over. There are outposts that you have to take over, and then you take over part of the territory. Oh, the word I came up with was Assassin's Chief. Not as catchy as I remembered it being, but anyway. So there is a lot of Assassin's Creed in the open world where you're just trying to take over territory and take it over for the UNSC. You can upgrade your equipment and gear using crafting and make them more powerful. You can increase Chief's abilities using crafting. You can increase like his ability to jump and his speed and things like that. It also has like a little bit of Breath of the Wild in here, Matt. Like they show some of, and if you were paying attention to the B-roll, there's a couple scenes where they show him using the grapple hook in some very creative and interesting ways. Which I never thought I would see in a Halo game, honestly. But there were times where like you use like the grapple hook or the tether in ways that probably you don't think it's supposed to be used for. Like you can have ships flying by and you can just snag onto it with the grapple hook and off you go. You're attached to the ship and you get towed away or whatever. So there is a little bit of that kind of X Factor element we saw in Breath of the Wild that's never been in a Halo game before. What else? There's new enemies called the Skimmers. One of the main bad guys is a Spartan killer called Jaga Aldermide, and it launches on December 8th. So now we've seen 2 chunks of the campaign, a ton of the multiplayer, and it's coming out December 8th. How are you feeling about it now, Matt?
I mean, that's all interesting to me. I'll give it a try. Why not? It's on Game Pass.
Yeah.
I mean, Halo needs a big shakeup. I don't know if just sort of doing what everyone else is doing is the path, but it's better than just doing Halo 4 and 5 again.
Yeah.
So I'll take it.
It's what we needed. It's what the franchise needed. It's good. See, just there, using the grapple hook in combat is something that will completely change up the game. You can use it to...
Yeah, anything you can do that doesn't make me just feel like I'm running around as Chief doing the same shit I've done since 2001 is good.
Because that is what it's felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point. I mean, we were at a point at a certain time when the big like draw was like you can aim down sights now.
Yeah.
You know, like Halo became archaic for a while.
It did. Absolutely. And I will say this, it does feel like it's kind of morphing into being more like other games instead of having kind of its own flavor.
But it had kind of, the things that made Halo unique had been absorbed so thoroughly by other games that Halo no longer felt unique.
You're right. It just felt like just a generic video game at that point. Because you're right. So many elements have been borrowed. The rebounding health meter and things like that. Like, and here you can see spawning vehicles out into the open world.
I mean, I even find it hard to go back to the old games now.
The old Halo games? Yeah.
Because I tried to I was going to do like a big Halo replay through the Master Chief Collection on the Series X, and I just couldn't get through them.
No aiming down the sights is weird for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Halo. Has always never really done that except the one game they did that in.
Well, now, I mean, it's part of the series now.
Yeah.
But the old games didn't have it.
Yeah. It's just,
and now it feels weird to not be able to snap down the sights.
And you can do it, but it's just like... I don't know. It feels like weirdly imprecise, even though it's not more imprecise because it takes that into account. But like, it just that's how I shoot things, and it's weird to not be able to. It's funny to go back and see how far we've come on it. Because I remember the first Halo was a revelation.
Oh yeah,
especially if you didn't play PC games.
Right. Yeah. If you were a console gamer, it was like, oh my god, like mind blowing.
I mean, it's kind of the first. It hadn't been anything like that since GoldenEye.
Yeah. It was the next GoldenEye for console players for sure. Meanwhile, I had been playing Tribes for years, and like it was actually like a step back for me. I remember people just freaking out, and I'm like, "Bro, I've been playing this other game for like 2 years now." But,
and for me, I had a Mac, and I played the Marathon games, and the Marathon games were basically these were basically sequels to Marathon.
Yeah,
and Marathon has a much more complex story with a lot more. Some would say deeper, some would say pretentious. I can see both sides of it for the storytelling in Marathon. But like the events of Marathon 2 are some of the most mind-bending things I'd seen. And then Marathon Infinity is the third one. That crosses about 14 different multiversal timelines of different versions of the games you already played.
Well, there's also scanning in this map, by the way.
So, scanning's good. Scanning's always good. But like, so to me, like Halo was always like, oh, you brought kind of the Bungie feel to the mainstream after the Marathon games.
You can snatch up almost anything with that grapple.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet, dude.
And it's like there's an element of this that feels like
you can snatch that hammer with it.
There's an element of this that feels like, why did it take this long?
Yeah,
for that.
I think they were afraid to mix it up.
Yeah,
because
they had
were
to be
the
taught.
new kids on the block trying to work on a property that everyone loved.
Not all of them. I mean, a bunch of the people at 343 have been on the thing since the beginning. But I mean, I get like
They weren't Bungie though.
No, but also even I mean, you saw that Bungie sort of took that satisfying gunplay with them when they made Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny feels great to play too. And that is one thing that hasn't really left. Like the gunplay still felt pretty satisfying in the last couple of Halos, but that's all there was to the game.
Yeah, the actual handling of the guns was good, but like I hate fighting Prometheans.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, the Banished is a dumb name, but at least it doesn't.
They had that weird tether thing with some of the enemies where you had to like take out the one first before you could take out the other one.
They all just felt like bullet sponges. In the end.
Yeah, which actually going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, there's some bullet sponges.
There are, but you can usually use somebody's special move, or his elemental ammo to short circuit that.
Yep, you can. Totally.
In Halo, there wasn't a whole lot you could do.
Yep. Well, I'm just going to say this. After this look at the campaign in Halo Infinite, I am all aboard the hype train. I'm ready. I am excited for it now.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'm definitely more interested.
Yeah, I am excited to play the campaign. I don't know how much I'm going to like the multiplayer. We'll see. But the campaign, I'm excited for. It's just a complete change from what we're used to with the franchise. And it was long overdue, as you said, but it's here. And I'm open-minded and ready and excited to give it a chance.
The chat actually makes a good point that the other thing that Halo 1 did was the two guns.
Yeah, dual wielding.
No, that was two.
Oh, just having two guns
only
at a
be able
time.
having to choose which guns to carry.
Which two guns?
That added a lot.
Yeah.
In a weird. And then was it 4 or 5 that just let you carry everything? One of them.
5, I think it was.
Five? Like, I didn't like
last
that.
one.
I didn't like that at all. It took something away.
It just made it like every other shooter. So it probably just washed right over me, and I didn't even realize like, oh, that's right.
The strategic choice of which two guns to carry was always
and how to use them in
tandem.
And that was an angle for it. Absolutely. But I am excited for Halo Infinite now. I hope you guys are too. If you're a Game Pass member, it's going to be free.
Yeah.
Which just blows my mind. Everyone's going to get a Halo game for free. This is the big test.
I gotta admit, I'm sitting here kind of thinking about buying Forza Horizon 5 just so I get to play it a few days early.
Oh.
Because I'm impatient that way.
Yeah. This is the big test for Game Pass, though. This is going to test Microsoft because they could end up potentially leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, but also if it's good, they could get a lot of subscriptions from it.
I mean, they could go up 10 million subscribers because you're basically buying it for $13.
Yeah.
So this is the big litmus test for Game Pass right here. It doesn't get any bigger for Microsoft than Halo.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see how it goes and how everyone reacts. But we're now about a month and 2 weeks away. And I was really impressed by what I saw in this updated look at the campaign. Certainly a huge step up from what we saw the first time. Also, did you notice, well, you didn't because you didn't watch it, they troll people at the end. So the dude that everyone made fun of from the first campaign reveal, like the guy that yells into the camera, there's a little shot of him at the end where they've updated him and he looks a lot better now. So 343 is aware of what the fans are saying.
What did they call him? What was his name?
I can't remember. But yeah.
the weirdly placid, like brute looking guy.
Yeah, I can try to look through and find the shot of him. But yeah, he became almost a meme. People were like, yeah, I think here he is. Let me see if I can get it up here for you guys. Yeah, him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a shot at the end where he's an extreme close up and he yells right into the camera and people made fun of that shot. And at the end of the new one, there it is right there. Yeah, people made fun of that shot. And now in the end of the new one, there's a very similar shot where they're like, look, we fixed it. Are you happy?
Yeah. Craig, that was his name.
Craig.
Vincent. Yeah, they named the one before. They named him Craig.
Well, Craig got an upgrade,
and apparently there were members of the dev team that made Craig shirts that week. I believe wholeheartedly that there was a faction of the 343 dev team that just felt completely vindicated by the reaction to that showing.
Yeah, I'm stopping him. I'm not helping here.
No, I mean it still looks better than the previous one. Just the lighting.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's the latest on Halo Infinite. I think that's the last update we're going to get on the campaign.
Probably.
We're 6 weeks out at this point. I hope you guys are excited for it. I am.
We should start seeing commercials soon, I think.
Yeah. Even Matt sounds like he might play it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to play it one way or the other. But the test is would I have played it if I didn't do this show? And now I probably would have.
Yeah.
I'm curious enough.
So-
Yeah, partly just because I'm a big mark for Ubisoft formula, and it sounds like they were lifting enough from that I'm interested to see how Halo translates to that.
Yeah, how are they going to do it? Yep, I'm excited. Hope you guys are too. And if you haven't already, now would be a great time to subscribe for Game Pass. And Forza's coming up too. What's the release date for Forza?
Like 2 weeks?
Yeah, I need to get in touch with Microsoft about review code for that. But we'll be covering that real soon on GameFace as well. All right, let's move on. We got a lot of topics to get through. That our opening with Steve went way longer than it was supposed to. That segment was supposed to be like 20 minutes.
Oh,
and it went almost an hour.
Sweet summer child.
my naivete. Yep. So we gotta move on. We have like 7 more topics to get through. So these last handful of topics are going to be like machine gun fire. And actually, the way the topics are, they probably will be.
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot to say about each one. I think it's all going to work out, actually. Next up, we're going to talk about the GTA Remastered Definitive Edition, the longest title for a video game, I believe, ever.
I don't know about that.
I don't know, dude. What is it? Is Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Remastered Definitive Edition. The Definitive Edition. Yeah, that's pretty long.
It's pretty long.
We've actually talked about this, I think, twice in the last, 6 weeks on GameFace.
There's some long titles out there. I saw a game on PlayStation Network, a PSN last night, that was called Lady in a Leotard with a Gun.
No.
It's literally, that's all it is, just a lady with a leotard holding a gun, and it's 49 cents.
Wow. That's crazy.
But they pulled Cyberpunk from that store. Just saying.
Yeah. So we've been talking about this remastered definitive edition that includes GTA 3, San Andreas, Vice City, all in one package. We had not got a look at it yet. By the way, that teaser trailer did not throw up a copyright strike. Which all Rockstar stuff usually does. That one did not. So maybe they've had a change of heart finally. They're finally figuring out it's 2021 and people want to promote their games in shows like GameFace. And so I'm hoping this one won't either, because we finally got the first look at what these remasters are going to look like. And Matt, I've got to say, I'm pretty shocked. This isn't just, okay, it's running at 1080p 60 frames per second now. They've completely redone the art style. In fact, I'm just going to go right back here to this character, because what do you think of that, Matt? The new art style.
I actually think it looks fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks better in motion.
It does.
But I think it's a pretty good. I think it's a pretty good compromise, because you're not going to get like photoreal.
Yeah.
Anything out of like a remaster of these games. So I think it kind of leans into the cartoony look that was on the cover art.
It does. And I mean, it looks like the cover art that they do for all
I think that kind of works.
I think it does too. It is a little strange at first.
But I think the more I saw it in motion, the less it bothered me. And it's a little more vivid than I thought it would be. You know what I mean? Like it all, and I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it all pops.
I mean, they've remodeled everything.
Yeah, and I expected them to.
They did a lot of work on this.
They did, in fact, give Tommy fingers.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got fingers, so that's good. I like the change here. You know, everything looks a little more bright and neon in Vice City.
Do you think that looks better? The city environment? I don't know about that.
I don't know. I mean, we're not going to see it from that angle too much. I think the grass looks a little plain. I think it looks good.
It looks flat a little bit.
It does look a little flat, but that might just be the lighting at the time. It's very hard to match a shot perfectly in the. And
by the way, I'm
games.
pausing this on the TriCaster, guys. This isn't the trailer. I'm pausing it so we can see the split screen here. It definitely is less realistic.
Yeah.
More cartoony.
Like it looks better.
Does it diffuse some of the edge of the series, of the franchise, by going that direction?
I don't think so. I mean, the content's still going to be there.
Yeah.
I think that looks better. I think this looks better. Generally, I think it's an improvement, and not just in the sense of, pure tech improvement. Obviously, it looks better than a PS2 game.
Oh yeah.
Mostly, I think aesthetically, I think it's an upgrade.
I think they handled GTA 3 the best.
GTA 3 definitely benefits the most from it, I would say. Vice City, I think, looks the weirdest.
I'd agree.
In the kind of the transition shots, like I'm just a little thrown off by Tommy Vercetti's face. I'm not sure why.
It's the cartoony. I mean, here I'm just going back and forth and just showing him transform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
I don't know,
that is
man.
not an exact translation of that character's face from what he looked like in the previous game.
Yeah.
But the previous, at the time they were going for realism because that was the best you could do, and now you can't go for realism with this level of fidelity, so they're going for a more cartoony look,
Stylized look.
and
yeah.
I think that's a good compromise. I think that's
Yeah.
more or less the only option they had there.
Yeah.
And it looks fine. It looks way better in motion than all the screenshots I see. But I do think Tommy Vercetti's face looks weird. I think that might just be his face, though. Like if you look at the old concept art, that's pretty much what he looks like.
Yeah.
Like he's just got a really angular face.
What's the guy's name from GTA 3 again?
He doesn't have one.
Yeah, I don't think he does. Yeah.
Although people call him Claude.
Claude. He looks a lot better, obviously.
Oh yeah, everything in GTA 3 looks better. I mean,
it's the most drastic of the.
yeah. San Andreas is more of an aesthetic shift more than a huge upgrade. But I'm curious to see what a little.
I don't know. Some of the characters I like better in the old style. Like this old guy here, I feel like looks better.
That guy's the new version of him. The eyebrows are are a choice.
Yeah.
But I think I will get used to it pretty quick. And again, you're not going to be thinking of that when you don't have the slider transition there.
Yeah.
Everything's going to look like it looks, and you're just sort of going to get used to it or hate it forever. I think.
Overall, I'm impressed with the amount of work that they put into these.
Yeah, it is definitely. I mean, Definitive Edition does not feel like just lip service.
It's more than I thought.
Yeah.
They really did put a ton of time and money into these to make a different version of the games than what we're all used to. And I think that's a good thing because they are asking $60 for this collection. And it is coming out for all platforms, including Switch. Which I was a little surprised that the Switch version is coming.
That might be another reason they're going for the cartoony look.
It could be.
Because you could probably do this, like you could do like the mods that are out there that make it look really photoreal, but then you couldn't put it on the Switch without
I
the
don't
cloud.
know, man. Nintendo's pretty lax. It lets almost anything.
No,
on
I mean
its platforms.
power-wise.
Oh, power. Yeah, they need. Yeah, it needs to be more cartoony.
This means it'll run on anything.
Yeah. Well, if it runs on Switch, it
runs on
definitely will run.
anything, yeah.
It'll run on my freaking cell phone if
Also,
it runs on Switch.
by the way, the longest title for a fighting game is Dexterion, the ultimate annihilator of the evil Dominion under cyborg demons Armageddon battle, fate of the cryptic world in cybernetic troopers' hands.
Okay.
It's a fighting game made in
Touche.
India.
Okay. The GTA collection title is very short in comparison to that. I will definitely give you that one. You gonna buy it? You gonna play them?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and WNerd123 makes a good point that they want to put this on iPhones too. So absolutely, they're going to put this on iOS and Android and everything. Yeah, it's going to be on everything.
It is coming November 11th for $60, but that's digital only, I believe. And then I think the hard copy versions come in like the first week of December.
Yeah,
or
I
something.
think that's what I read. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get the digital one.
Are you?
I'm fine. I need a hard copy of this one. I don't think.
I think what it's gonna. Well, Rockstar will send it to me, so I'll get it like the digital.
It might be fun to
version.
have a. I guess it might be fun to have a disc copy to put next on the shelf next to the other ones.
I think I'm probably gonna buy a disc version
because I do have like 3 versions of it now.
Yeah, it's
the PS2 originals, the Xbox ports.
Does this outsell Call of Duty Vanguard?
No.
No, they're coming out like basically the same week.
Yeah, very close. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it might be close.
Maybe. I don't think so.
You gotta realize there's a whole generation of players who
maybe in the long run, like maybe by like May, because I imagine this has legs. Yeah, this is going to sell forever, just like GTA 5.
Yep, absolutely. So, anyways, coming November 11th to digital for $60, all platforms, including Switch, and in the first week of December for physical versions for those of you who would prefer to wait to get a disc-based version of the game or a card-based version. If you're
apparently, Erebus Jones says San Andreas is coming to Game Pass on day 1.
Wow.
So you can get the best one.
Just San Andreas the 3.
And 3 will come to PS Now.
That's weird because the other thing about this that we found out is...
So really you just have to pay for Vice City.
Well, you can't, though.
Yeah, but you have to buy all of them.
Yeah, like Rockstar's not going to sell them a la carte.
But hot take, Vice City is the worst one of the 3. My favorite setting and my favorite soundtrack, but
it's also maybe the most innovative of them.
Vice City?
Yeah, because it brought in like the whole if you eat stuff you get.
No, it didn't.
I thought
San Andreas.
that
did
was
all
San
that.
Andreas.
Vice City is literally a reskin of 3.
Oh, I thought Vice City had that. San Andreas.
No, San Andreas added the.
Then that is
weight gain and strength training and swimming and hopping over fences. San Andreas was the first time they actually improved anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Vice City could have been an expansion pack.
Also, you got to remember that like all the aiming and stuff has been fixed for this.
Yeah.
So
it's been fixed in the PC and the Xbox versions. The original Xbox versions added the stick aiming for them because they were just PC ports.
Yep, and they're updated for this as well. Looking pretty good.
Yeah,
I got to say, Rockstar,
it's a solid collection.
Did a pretty good job.
Turned out to be 60, not 70, even on the next gen stuff. I think.
Yep.
So
I think it's going to do very, very well.
That's a good collection. Although again, by middle of next year, you'll be able to play 3 Vice City, San Andreas, and 5, but 4 remains the black sheep.
That's right.
Of the GTA family.
It's the Russian dude.
Yeah. Cousin, come bowling with me.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go bowling.
I don't think people related to that setting.
I think I like that game.
I loved it. I thought it was amazing. But I think mass audience wise.
Yeah. Also, I think revisiting it might be awkward now.
Because that's GTA.
True.
There's always going to be stuff in those games that you're going to go back. Even when you play it the first time, you're like, oh, damn. And then you go back when standards have changed and it's even more.
Yeah, I mean, that's also true of some of this, too. Yeah, it's there's a lot of questions about some of the let's call it humor.
I don't think they'll change it.
Probably not. But I will say that, like, yeah, it'll be fun to revisit some of the stuff I like in that game, and it'll be less fun to remember how not funny Laszlo is.
Yeah.
Wasn't really then, and now even less so.
Yep. All right, let's move on because we got a lot to get to. Next, we're going to talk about the Uncharted movie. We got the first trailer for that this week. I will say this: before I saw the trailer, I was optimistic that the movie might be decent, not good. I never have faith that a video game-based movie is going to be great because they are usually terrible. But I did have faith that maybe this one might be passable. But Matt, now that I've seen a trailer for it,
there's a lot of choices that were made here.
It's like they tried to jam every moment from every Uncharted video game into one film.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like the chances of this being good are slim to none after watching this trailer. I don't know why Marky Mark was cast for this. Does he make sense to you?
No, Mark Wahlberg as Sully is one of the most bizarre casting choices since Chris Pratt as Mario. Like, that is... I don't know what the hell is going on there, especially when you can just go get Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Why is Jeffrey Dean Morgan not Sully?
Yeah.
Like that, it's right there. Also, like, he looks so much like Tom Holland, they look like brothers. And then they do mention Sam.
Yeah.
Like, they do mention Sam. It's weird. I don't know. Like, Tom Holland looks too young. Like, I know it's supposed to be kind of an origin story, but he still looks too young to be...
Is it supposed to be an origin story?
It's supposed to be like his first big adventure sort of thing. I don't think it's supposed to be like young Drake or anything like in Uncharted 3, but I think he is supposed to be kind of early in his career.
I mean, Marky Mark, how old is he now? 50?
Yeah.
How is he? I guess Sully, though.
I mean, he's old enough to be Sully. He just doesn't look like Sully. You know, Sully is a little more of a broke down old dude.
And he also he doesn't act like him. He doesn't have the Sully vibe.
Well, no, because he's just Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Like, he's no matter what he is, he's Mark Wahlberg playing Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg as himself that everyone's calling Sully for some reason. It's just, they're taking... it doesn't bother me they're taking a bunch of basically the greatest hits from the games for the big action set pieces. Like, you assume you're not going to make another one, so you just take the best stuff.
Oh, really? You think that they make these movies assuming there won't be another?
I mean, at this point, you cannot assume this movie. I mean, you hope it's going to be a hit, but you can't assume it's going to be a hit. So you just throw everything you can in this thing to hope it will become, a big draw, and make you the money you need to make another one. And if you get to make another one, you can just sort of, figure out what you're going to do next and come up with some new set pieces. Or it shouldn't be that hard. But it does make sense to me that, like, people are like, oh my God, why would you put an Uncharted 3 action sequence in Uncharted 1? It's like, well, because no one cares. Like, no one.
Only we do.
Like, maybe maybe 10% of the mass audience even knows these games exist, let alone care which action sequences from which game. Like, they're clearly not telling the game's story. They are telling an alternate universe version of Nathan Drake's story, and they're going to use this plane sequence because that looks cool in a trailer. Like, that's it.
Do you think that when they make movies that are based on games, that their goal is to just get all the fans of the game to come to see the film? Or do you think the goal is to, the fans are going to go no matter what? We need to make the movie to appeal to everybody else.
The goal is always to get everybody else. You can't make a $200 million movie and expect it to make, you can't.
Do you think this movie was $200 million?
I'll guess it's at least 150.
Wow.
Like,
they're going to lose a lot of money.
They might. They damn well might. It doesn't always translate, folks.
There are some scenes in this trailer,
They're spending
too.
a ridiculous amount of money on The Last of Us show, too.
That, I think, might end up being really good, though.
Well, because it's a streaming series. I mean, I think
and
that's
it's
a better
handled
shot.
by the people who made the games.
Yeah.
There are some shots in this where it looks like it was shot on like a handy cam instead of film.
Yeah, I mean, I will say at least I recognize some of it. Like, if you show me Tom Holland in these shots, I recognize he's supposed to be either Nathan Drake or a young boy cosplaying Nathan Drake. He does not have the half tuck, though, so that's a criticism. But like, and he's also just sort of. I mean, there's a good oh crap in there. So they're paying homage to. They clearly played, somebody in there played the game.
Yeah.
But like, the other problem is that like one of the novelties of Uncharted at the time those games came out is they were doing action movie stuff as a video game.
Yeah.
And you hadn't really had a big budget kind of Indiana Jones style action movie thing that captured that sort of tone and that sort of like large scale action set piece stuff in video games. If you translate that back to movies, you're just making another action movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing about Uncharted in the context of film that stands out as something you haven't seen or you'd want to see in a movie.
Yeah.
The only draw of this is to see Uncharted be a movie.
Yeah,
and there aren't
true.
enough of us who know what Uncharted is or care about Uncharted being a movie to make that a hit. Like, I don't know what they think they're doing here. Like, you had to make this. If I was going to pick a Sony property to be our first big theatrical release off of our new PlayStation film studio
whatever,
thing,
yeah.
Uncharted would be way near the bottom of the list. Like, it's just not an interesting premise for a film. It was.
I think they look at it. They're like, oh, it could be the next Indiana Jones.
Right. Well,
they've been trying to make
part
the
of the
next
problem
Indiana
is
Jones for like 30 years.
Well, the other thing is part of the problem is you show a film executive or film guy this game, and they know what it is. They
Yeah.
recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
They recognize it as a film thing that exists. You don't get anything made in Hollywood right now unless you can say it's this meets this.
It's this
It
matched
has
up
to be
with
a
this.
known factor with an X factor.
Lower risk,
And
yeah.
so if you say that this is basically like Indiana Jones, but like with James Bond combined, because there's all machinations and stuff.
That's a good way to describe
Like, that is going to get like a movie executive person to sign off on
Yeah.
it. Whereas like if you try to explain why Infamous might be an interesting movie, you're going to have a longer pitch and it's not going to keep their attention the same way. But I would argue that an Infamous movie or even a Killzone movie would have a little more of a hook than just we ordered an Indiana Jones movie from Wish.
the last
Now this looks like we ordered an Indiana Jones movie from Wish.com. And look, Last of Us. I think making Last of Us as a streaming series is the right call.
Yeah.
I think that they did the right call there. They are spending an obscene amount of money on that. Sounds like they're doing it upright. Druckmann's directly involved, and they're spending. The shoot is 12 months long. Like, they're not like Pedro Pascal's not going to be on set for 12 months, but
Right.
like, it's a long. They are doing it up. They are going for a prestige series on this.
That look like Marky Mark to you?
And it might not too much.
Or as the lower third says, Marky Snark.
Marky Mark after a lifetime of more cigars.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun thing of Sully is he's sort of an old school. Like, Sully is an archaic character archetype.
I knew Sully.
He's the guy. He would have been the mentor character in like the Indiana Jones movies in the 80s.
Yeah.
He's like
I know Sully.
Yeah, even though Sully is around at this, whatever. Sully is like not that much older than you and me,
Right.
really.
Yeah.
But like, he feels like he was born in like 1920.
He feels like a character that I've seen in so many other films.
Yeah, he's from an old
that
school
guy.
movie.
Yeah.
He's from like a Treasure of the Sierra Madre kind of thing.
Right.
He's like the guy who's seen it all, but he can't do it all
And
anymore.
he always, the first time he's ever seen in a film, he's sitting at a bar sipping scotch.
And and that's Sully. I mean, Sully is playing that archetype to a T in the Uncharted games, and there's a reason he kind of fades out after a couple of games because like there's only so much you can do with that character.
Yeah.
He can only really show up and be an assist and look cool for a second.
You just feel bad or sorry for him.
Right.
He became like that foil after a while.
Yeah, but in a movie, the fact that he's Marky Mark is like, okay, you don't feel any of that from like Marky Mark can't play that archetype because he's not a broke down old loser. Like he's
so weird.
Like he's a more competent action guy than than Tom Holland, really,
Yeah.
at this point. So that's why it feels like an origin story in the sense that it's more like younger Sully teaching Nathan the ropes.
Yeah.
And
Which could be okay.
could be, but it doesn't. I don't know. There's something about that trailer that just does not catch. And some of that might, you can't always judge things by trailers, especially when it's Sony marketing cutting the trailer, because Sony is terrible at trailers.
Yeah.
The Sony Pictures makes bad. The new Spider-Man trailer is a rare exception in that it does seem to have hit pretty well. I think the new Spider-Man is going to be the first $1 billion movie post-lockdown.
Wow.
But I will say that Spider-Man trailer gives away so much stuff from that movie that I almost wish I'd never seen it.
Wow.
Like, it would be a lot cooler if we didn't know the Green Goblin was in there, because they show the pumpkin bomb and you hear Willem Dafoe laugh, and then Alfred Molina steps out as Doc Ock, and you're like, oh, thanks for telling me that's going to happen. You know? Like, I would have seen that movie no matter what, but you've just sort of blown some of the surprise here, and that's sort of disappointing.
They didn't need to.
But that's just what Sony's done that since Men in Black. All of Sony's trailers for their movies have been
has spoilers in them.
coming soon, the following plot, and then a lot of times some of the stuff in the trailers aren't even in the movie.
It ends up being cut.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That goes back to Men in Black, the first Men in Black.
Yeah,
like half the trailer for the first Men in Black is not in the movie.
That's nuts.
So yeah, like I'm not going to wholly judge this thing right now because of not liking the trailer, but I do think none of the casting really works. The choices are very strange. I mean, it could have been worse if we remember the I think it was Scorsese that was going to make the version of it, which was going to be like set in an antique shop or something like. And was going to have like De Niro in it or something.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre choices.
De Niro makes sense for old Sully, though, I think.
Sort of, but also like not Sully. Like I mean, he's not a Sully type. He could be a crotchety mentor, but he's not that character.
Yeah.
Like the ideal Sully would probably be like a slightly younger John Goodman. Like John.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense.
John, maybe John Goodman from The Big Lebowski with less of a violent streak.
Yeah.
Like just a
little thinner.
Yeah. Well, he's very thin now.
I know. Yeah, I saw that.
But yeah, it's. I mean, did we ever think an Uncharted movie was really going to be that amazing?
No, but I'm not going to go see it in the theater now.
Probably not. Like, unless I
I'm cool waiting for VOD on that one, I think.
It's one of those, like, if nothing else. I mean, look,
Sonic surprised me.
Yeah, but
So
also, like,
possible.
I saw Venom 2 in the theater, so maybe I got no excuse to not see this in the theater.
Well, the honeymoon, it depends. The honeymoon will probably be over at that point. Mm-hmm. Like, as far as, like, wow, we're back at the movies, so I'll go see whatever I can at this point.
Right.
Like, the shine will have come off that at that point, provided there isn't like some Zeta variant of the of COVID-19.
But like the Zeta Halo will be here to kill us all. No, I mean, I back before times, I'd see anything in a theater.
Yeah.
So I think movies should be seen in theaters.
Good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think Villeneuve running around saying like Dune should only be seen in theaters, and if you don't want to go to a theater in the middle of a pandemic, you're a wuss and don't deserve to see my movie. That's bullshit.
Far, yeah.
Like that's just pretentious nonsense. I'm a big fan of his and everything he's made, but like no, let people watch it on HBO Max if they don't feel safe going to a theater. It's not people's fault that they live in especially. I mean, here I feel safe going to a theater in LA, but like. If I lived in like Alabama, maybe not. And like, I don't think I don't deserve to see Dune because my state hasn't handled the pandemic properly.
Yeah, agreed.
But by that point, I'm hoping I'll be back to the point where I'm just like, oh, a movie came out, let's go see the movie.
I won't be going to see a movie in Florida or Texas for a long time.
Although Florida's like the lowest transmission rate right now.
Oh, really?
And no one really knows why.
Well, I know why. It's an island. There's no borders where people are coming over their borders and bringing the virus in. Like. It's
a huge destination.
The weather,
it's a huge vacation destination spot, and the weather didn't help them in the fall last year.
The climate
didn't help last year.
The fact that everybody's outside all the time, all the malls are outside, all the restaurants are outside.
Yeah, but
it all makes a difference.
It dropped big in the last month or so, and
it has everywhere though.
But not Vermont. Vermont, which has traditionally been really, really good, their case rate is way up.
So weird.
So it is really weird. But it's also because it's getting cold, I guess.
Yeah, up there it has.
But again, the thing that the headlines and a lot of the news don't really report is like yes, it's way up, but it's only up amongst unvaccinated people.
It's also up when it was at like 2.
Right.
If it goes from 2% to 4%, that's
a 100% increase.
Exactly.
And that sounds a lot scarier than just
it really is.
2%. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, in summary, maybe I'll see Uncharted in the theaters.
I won't.
I don't know.
I can tell you right now I won't.
I'll see things in a theater much more readily when it's not a risk to my life.
Sure.
So
That makes sense. All right.
not going to die for Mark Wahlberg. I'm sorry.
For Marky Snark. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about...
I will not feel that vibration.
We're going to talk next about God of War coming to PC. We found out about it not that long ago. We got the first trailer for it this week. Did you get to check out the footage?
A little bit of it. I mean, I don't really care about this. So, like,
why do you think? And the reason I have it in the show is because everybody else does.
Yeah.
After
because
several
it's news.
PlayStation games,
It's certainly industry news. It's just I don't intend to play it on PC. I don't.
But
have a
it's
PC
not
for
even
it.
about that it's news. It's how fans have reacted. So, first of all, it does look great.
Yeah.
Like, this footage looks amazing. But the big issue is that, like, PlayStation fans really didn't freak out about other PlayStation games coming to PC until this one. Mm-hmm. And now there's uproar.
Because this is one of the flagships.
And there's people freaking out on Reddit over the game coming to PC.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it looks damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably looks better than it does on any PlayStation platform. The port is being handled by
I think it could look almost as good on PS5 if they really did a job on it, but I don't think this looks... I don't think the PS5 version right now of the PS4 game looks like this.
I don't think it looks as good either. The port's being handled by a studio called Jetpack Interactive. Mm-hmm. It has done ports of Dark Souls in the past to other platforms.
Which is...
Is that not encouraging?
A couple of those, Dark Souls had to get some work from the community on PC. Mm-hmm. Like, it was, those launched kind of rough.
I think what people are missing about this, though, and they're being short-sighted about it, is that this is, as the lower third says, it's a Trojan horse. They want PC players to play this. It is coming out January 14th.
Yeah. Because guess what's coming out in a couple months?
Right.
Something you can only play on the PS5.
On PlayStation 5. Yeah. And that's what I think people are missing, is that this is actually an ingenious plan.
Yeah, this is a tactical strike.
Absolutely.
No question.
And it's not even just about the next God of War coming out shortly afterwards. It's all the big games for PS5 coming out next year.
Yeah, because PS5 is about to have a really big Q1.
As much as I complained about PlayStation 5 in 2021, I am likely going to be praising it in 2022. And all this is doing is just priming the pump for people to get a PS5. Presumably,
and it's also
they'll be more readily available.
And what's the other thing is coming out in February is the sequel to the other big PC Sony game, Horizon.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So you're kind of reminding people that maybe played Horizon and then play God of War, and they're like, wow, these are really good games.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, there's sequels to both of those games you liked, but you have to buy a PS5 to play them.
It's all...
Or wait like a year and a half.
It's all part of the master plan. It's genius. Like, no matter how much PlayStation fans freak out...
Yeah, they are still trying to sell consoles with this move.
They care.
For sure.
Like, Microsoft doesn't care about selling consoles anymore. PlayStation does.
Yeah, because look, like... They made their money off this thing already.
Oh, yeah.
On PlayStation. Like, it's they're
Many
done.
times over.
Like, this is gravy, and it's a way to get people who might not otherwise look at a console to look at a console.
It's the fans are just salty because it's, it's one of the feathers that they've had in their
I've
cap.
seen, like, people, this stuff, it's like, oh, like, every exclusive that is no longer an exclusive for a platform devalues that platform.
No,
and it's just like, that's ridiculous.
Like, wasn't it enough
ridiculous.
for PlayStation fans that it won unanimous Game of the Year everywhere, including from us? Like, it sold like 20-some million copies. Like, what more do you want? Like, this is just Sony trying to spread the brand. And look, what's going to happen is more people are going to buy a PS5. More revenue is going to be generated by the PS5, which means more exclusive games for PS5.
And like the only thing holding...
Don't covet this old game from 2018.
The only thing holding the PS5 back at this point is their ability to make PS5s.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's it. And get them over here and ship them. Get them into the port. That's the other problem.
Like if they were going to start putting PlayStation exclusives on PC day one alongside the PS5, like I could see some of the concern there.
I can understand why people would be pissed about that.
Because then you're kind of in Xbox territory where you're like, why do you want an Xbox?
This game is 3 years old, people. 3 years old. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't get it.
Like, I ain't waiting 3 years to play Sony games.
Hell no.
So I don't see the problem here.
Waiting 3 days to play Sony first-party games.
We've driven across LA just to get it a day early. Some of these things at some of these stores. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's all a part of Sony's master plan. If you were pissed off about this, get over it. It's gonna. If you're a PlayStation fan, it's gonna end up to the good for you.
Yeah.
You're going to get more games, better games, because more people are buying PS5s because of stuff like this. It's a 3-year-old game. It's not going to hurt Sony in any way, shape, or form. So get on board, figure it out like the rest of us, and enjoy the other games that are going to be released because of God of War coming to PC and all the other stuff that's inevitably going to come. The whole lineup's eventually going to be there, Matt.
Yeah.
Everything.
Probably.
And I wouldn't be surprised if instead of waiting 3 years...
The only thing that wouldn't come would be something I don't even think is worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would argue if you were really excited about Death Stranding, it did come to PC a little quick.
It did.
But I didn't really care about it in the first place, so it doesn't matter to me. They waited 3 years for God of War. That's fine. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see like Horizon 2 or God of War Ragnarok on PC for less than 2 years out.
No way. That probably, I'm guessing, will end up becoming kind of the new standard 2 years. I don't think they'll wait 3 years.
Like I'm not going to judge the time gap on any of these, the big ones, by like how long it took them to put like Death Stranding and Days Gone.
Right. Yeah. Two of their lesser selling games that they actually were hoping to get more sales out of. Yeah. Yep. So there you go. That's God of War on PC.
And Horizon, which was also like about that old.
Yep. It was what, 2? It was almost 3 years old.
Oh, almost, yeah.
Yeah. Right around there. Again, that's God of War for PC. It launches January 14th of next year. So not long to wait. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about we talked about a Smash Brothers clone a few weeks ago, which they never sent me a review code for that. I asked for a review code. And
the Nickelodeon thing?
Yeah. You'd think
they got a little savaged because of how bare bones some of that was.
Still, like you think you'd want coverage of a game usually games like that. I get code, no problem.
I think they're going to do a big patch on that and add voices and and a bunch of production value to it. And I think maybe they'll send out stuff to be re-reviewed then.
That could be
because I think that game ended up catching fire in a way they didn't expect.
Maybe. I was excited.
They hit a nostalgia boom that they were not ready for. They struck some oil with that one, I think.
Usually if I reach out for games like that, done. They're like, how many codes do you want? Like, I can get you codes usually. Not for that one. They never sent me a code. And so we haven't covered it yet on GameFace, consequently. We're about to cover another one. Rumors leaked this week that Warner Bros. Is working on a Smash Bros. It was originally posted on Reddit by some anonymous person. People didn't believe him, and then Jeff Grubb from VentureBeat jumped in and said, nope, this is absolutely true. This is absolutely happening. Yeah. The one difference was...
the original rumor said it was NetherRealm.
Said NetherRealm was making it.
Grubb said it wasn't.
And then Grubb said, no, it's not NetherRealm. Did he say what studio was?
If he did, I didn't see it.
I don't remember either. What do you think about this? A Warner Brothers Smash Brothers. So
I can't even picture what that's going to be. It's going to be like Neo versus... Lord of the Rings people versus Harry Potter people versus The Witcher.
Here's the list of characters that the initial person said. Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Well, that's a meme. So yeah, that would definitely be in there.
Gandalf.
They referenced that in one of the Mortal Kombat animated movies.
Did they?
At the very beginning, I think it was something. God, what was it? It was something they did. I think it was one of the animated movies, and it showed like. It was like Scorpion and Sub-Zero or something attack, and like Shaggy opens the Warner Brothers logo with his glowing eyes and kills them both, and just goes and like Warner Brothers is well aware of the Shaggy 1% meme.
Okay. Yeah. Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, Tom and Jerry.
Okay.
Batman, Fred Flintstone, Mad Max, and Johnny Bravo.
Wow. Vincent says there's a picture of the character select screen leaked.
Oh, no way.
And Goku's in there.
Shaggy versus Goku is real, Emperor Dread says. Wow. That's okay.
Yeah, it even has a picture of that Shaggy thing I talked about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I guess it's real. It's happening. It's not a question of whether it's going to happen or not.
Looks like they've taken the media down, but it says Steven Universe, Adventure Time, Batman, Harley Quinn, Superman, Wonder Woman, Gandalf, Rick and Morty, Tom and Jerry, Big Bugs Bunny, and a new character.
Wow.
Post-launch DLC. One of the first could be LeBron.
LeBron
for
James
DLC
from Space
Jam. Oh, wow.
Oh, LeBron would love that.
That would be fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you think this is going to work, Matt?
You
think everyone else is going to care?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of interested in Batman versus Gandalf. Like, yeah, it's like Like that's just crazy enough to work.
It is. That's yeah. I mean, they do have an eclectic.
Get Neo in there.
lineup.
Get Neo in there. I mean, Space Jam did it. Get Neo in there. Get the Clockwork Orange droogs in there.
Oh my
like,
gosh, dude!
Like
What
get
if
the Men in Black in
what
there.
if they
Like go
played
crazy.
like the Ice Climbers, where they're like tethered together, like the Clockwork Orange guys? That would be awesome. Yeah, I guess there is some possibilities here.
Yeah, there's
that
a
could be
lot.
really cool.
Warner Brothers has a lot of stuff.
It does. But it's like, it's so weird the way when I look at Warner Brothers. I'm like, but wait a minute, you're like on the block. Like, and so what happens if the sale happens? What happens to this game? What happens to all the games?
Yeah, but I mean, you can't make business decisions on something that hasn't happened.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but it just seems strange.
They're not going to be bought by anybody anytime soon.
You don't think?
No. That's the
I guess
wheels.
if it would have happened, it would have happened.
Yeah, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And if anyone does buy them, probably NBC Universal.
Yeah.
And as we know, certainly I know firsthand, it takes NBC Universal a long time to do that.
Yep.
Years and years. So they can probably get this thing done in plenty of time.
It seems real.
Yeah.
Which, when I first heard about it, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, also, apparently, Warner Brothers also applied for a patent or a trademark for the multiverses.
Yeah, multiverses. That's what it's supposedly called.
Yeah, instead of multiverses. What does that mean? Is it just
Versus.
right? But is that like the title of the
That's
game?
the title of the game, yeah. I bet that's the title of the game.
Multiverses.
Warner Brothers Multiverses.
Okay. Yeah, you can't really use Smash or Bros, really.
No.
It is kind of funny that Warner Bros, Smash Bros. Synergy. I'm interested.
Yeah.
Color me intrigued. Because the characters are just so, I mean, they're even more abstract than like the matchups in Smash Brothers.
Yeah, it's an even more bizarre like pairing of all these characters.
Because you have cartoon characters versus real people.
Yeah, like Fred Flintstone
How does
versus
that work?
Gandalf, and like, I mean, it's
It could be really
it's
cool.
a fun matchup.
It's fun to even think about, like the different matchups of characters.
You could do some really interesting. You could put Mortal Kombat guys in there.
Yeah, like I don't know if you
Probably put
want
Geralt in there.
superheroes in there, like Batman and stuff. Like,
I think everything's fair game.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised that NetherRealm isn't making it. 'Cause they've already worked with a lot of these characters.
Yeah, but they don't make platform fighters.
Yeah.
You know, like you want some of the.
I wouldn't mind seeing them try.
Eh,
I mean, is this studio that's making it ever made a fighting game?
who knows?
I mean,
we don't know who this is.
Could it be worse than
But also, like,
NetherRealm?
don't distract NetherRealm from making your next,
Mortal
10 million,
Kombat?
10, 15 million seller.
Yeah.
Like, this may or may not work. So don't
Yeah.
let NetherRealm keep making your guaranteed hit.
or give NetherRealm more money so it can make 2 games?
You already got these guys not doing anything. Whoever these guys are. I mean, they only have so many teams. I wonder if it's a new team.
It might be. But you wonder how they got money for a new team when they're on the block. Who knows?
You still have budget.
Yeah.
You're still spending money. You gotta do business.
Yeah. It's weird.
Like, it's actually illegal to make business decisions based on a upcoming sale that is not public or approved.
Right.
Like, they have to keep doing
Yeah,
business.
I get that. I think I had just assumed in my mind that it was just going to happen. It was going to, no matter how long it took, eventually those studios were going to be sold.
Yeah,
But it really has dragged on.
Because you don't know what the value of anything is yet, because nothing's recovered fully past the lockdown.
Yep.
You got to see what. I'll tell you what. I'm sure anyone who's interested in buying Warner Brothers is waiting to see what kind of money the Matrix 4 makes.
Probably. And that probably will be rolled into this as well, would be my guess.
There's no way the Matrix isn't in this.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Like Neo and Trinity will definitely be in there.
That's pretty sweet. And then you start thinking about, Smash Brothers and like the stages and everything, like the different stages that you could have in the game. Like, yeah. It could be really cool.
There's some good stuff in there. Yeah, I mean, basically, it's going to live or die in its gameplay.
Yep.
They're going to have to replicate the Smash feel.
Is it that hard to replicate, though? It doesn't
Seems
seem
to be.
like. Really?
Sony didn't pull it off.
Yeah.
But there have been a bunch of Smash clones that have not,
it
really
seems like that
captured this.
Nickelodeon
The Nickelodeon thing seems to have done it more or
Yeah.
less.
Uh-huh.
But it's not a simple formula.
No, it's not as simple as you would think, for sure. So
If it was, everybody would do it.
yeah.
And when they've tried to do it, it hasn't worked.
Well, it seems like everyone at this point has tried to do it,
Yeah.
but failed. And I'm sure there's tons of projects that we never even heard of
Oh, for sure.
where they tried to
For
do
sure.
it and just
I'm sure this is not the first attempt at a Nickelodeon Smash Brothers clone.
I would
We've
pretty
just
much
never seen them
guarantee.
before.
Right, yeah, because they were just
This is the first one to make it to
terrible.
market, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, probably so. So anyway, that's all the information we have on this right now, but it's certainly a very intriguing idea. Warner Brothers has the IP and the characters to make it happen and make it interesting, and at least make it something a little bit different. My mind is swimming just thinking about the possibilities. So I think it's probably a good thing, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited for it. My guess is we don't see that till 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe saw it at E3 next year.
Yeah.
But I imagine, it's at least a 2023 Christmas release or something if we're hearing
or
about
Q1
this now.
24, something like
Then
that.
again, if they've decided the character select screen, it might be further along than we think.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's true. So there you go.
Let's see what Mr. Keighley presents us in a couple months.
Could be there too.
That seems like a prime Game Awards announcement with the Shaggy thing.
Now that the cat's out of the bag too.
Yeah, with the cat out of the bag and with Shaggy being like, the Mimi thing to that, like it feels like
the Mimi thing.
it feels like feels like Jeff would try to get that. I feel like that's something Jeff would be like, oh, let's reveal Shaggy on the Game Awards.
Agreed. All right, let's move on. I told you these last few topics were going to go fast. We're going to talk about BlizzCon, or what used to be called BlizzCon, because BlizzCon was just placed on indefinite hold.
I told you when this all happened, Blizzard's going away.
You did say that their brand would go away.
Yeah, they're going to get rid of Blizzard. You cannot rehabilitate that.
Wow.
It's just going to be Activision now.
You really think they're going to get rid of Blizzard? Period.
I think they are going to phase Blizzard out as a. I mean, I don't think they're going to shut down the campus and move everybody up. Yeah. But I don't think you are going to see Blizzard plastered on things anymore.
Wow.
I don't think Blizzard will exist as its own sort of sub brand of Activision anymore.
I mean, this certainly points to it, because they're not. It wasn't like, hey, we're undergoing some change here, and we're gonna rework this thing and roll it out bigger and better.
They did say we'll see you soon, and we're gonna
Well, they said that they're gonna basically start doing directs.
Yeah.
Is what I translated it to. Is they're like, you know what? Why do we do this huge event that's a pain in the butt?
There's also an element of well, what would they even show at this point?
Well, we're still waiting for Diablo 4. Still waiting for Overwatch 2.
Yeah, but they just kind of blew Overwatch 2 out recently.
They did. Yep. Which we covered
in
on the
probably
show.
a similar thing to what they'll just do going forward.
Yeah, and Diablo has already had a couple events of its own.
Yeah, your Diablo 4 is just you call us when it's ready.
Yeah.
At this point,
I think that's always been the problem with BlizzCon. Is what does Blizzard show? And a lot of for years they were able to float it along with World of Warcraft stuff, but
it also feels like a lot of that stuff is at an all-time low. At least in normal BlizzCons, you had people that were super into Overwatch, people are super into the current seasons of Diablo, you had people that are super into whatever the new expansion or what was going on in World of Warcraft. And now there hasn't really been all that much in terms. People are waiting for their Overwatch 2. People are waiting for Diablo 4. World of Warcraft is kind of on the outs in comparison, certainly to the new expansions to Final Fantasy 14, which are kind of the new hotness in the MMO community, or that Amazon, the New World. Everyone's playing that now.
yeah.
And you've got the PR disaster of how everybody doesn't want to deal with Blizzard right now because of all the crap going on there. There are no good feelings about Blizzard right now. There's nothing to celebrate about Blizzard.
And that's what BlizzCon's supposed to be.
Exactly. So it makes sense to do that. I don't think it comes back. I don't think any of that.
I don't think it does either. I mean, the other thing I remember about BlizzCon is they sold pay-per-view tickets for that.
Yeah.
It was actually a pretty big revenue driver for Blizzard for years and years. But at this point, you can turn your back on that revenue to just try to get your company's name right. One of the questions this week for Pactor Factor was, how does a company repair its reputation? Mm-hmm. And Pactor provided a bunch of examples, but this wasn't one of them. But this is one of them.
This is what they're attempting, I think. Yeah. You have to make people
cancel
forget.
Your big event.
Yeah, you have to make people forget that this you were basically running a sexual harassment factory.
Yeah.
So.
And you can't make people forget that.
Nope.
So you just go away.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
they got a slap on the wrist fine. It's not not really paying much of a price for it, but it's a PR disaster, and you have to step away. I don't know how you rehabilitate Blizzard as a name.
It's tough.
You just have to kind of gut the thing and assure everybody that different people are running the show, and we're just not going to talk about that anymore.
Will you miss BlizzCon at all, Matt?
No.
Yeah, me either.
I've never been to BlizzCon.
I've never been. Anytime an outlet I worked for covered it, I would, when they're like, hey, BlizzCon is coming up, I would go to the bathroom and try to get out of it.
I have never been. I mean, I like several, I played World of Warcraft for a fair amount of time. I like StarCraft. I
like Blizzard games.
I love Diablo. But Blizzard's output is not frequent or broad enough for me to be a fan of them as a corporate entity. You know what I mean?
Well, everybody who would go to BlizzCon would come back and complain.
Well, yeah,
and I was like, so why would you think I would want to go?
They've got like 4 games. What do you think was going to happen? Like, it's not
why
even
do you
3.
think I want to go? Why would I go?
The only reason to go is to get the
the
exclusive stuff and sell the codes for obscene
tchotchkes.
Amounts of money to pay for your entire trip. That was what. Yeah, the World of Warcraft pet gets you hundreds of dollars when you get home. Like that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Almost pay for your flight
down the freeway for me. I'm not going to do that.
I still wouldn't go.
I don't know what I'd do.
It's 40 minutes away from me, and I still never went. That's maybe the only event I never went to, Matt. BlizzCon.
Yeah.
Every other
true.
one I had to go to at least once.
Certainly
for work.
the only one in driving distance.
Yeah. Because I never wanted to go.
Well, I mean, I even went to E4all.
So, like
once.
I said, me too. And so, like I said, I would hide. Like when people would be like, "Okay, who wants to go?" Like at X-Play, we'd be like, "Who's going to go to BlizzCon?" I'd be like creeping out of the back of the.
Well, I was so glad when like the web team expanded more, and like all of a sudden because a lot of them played World of Warcraft and everything, and like BlizzCon, and people would like fight to be the people that got to send to BlizzCon. I'd just be like, all right,
have at it,
and like there would be people begging for the free, like the
or you would act like you're disappointed you didn't get it, so that you could use it as leverage later. Now I have to go to Tokyo Game Show.
Oh no, the Australia trip instead. Damn.
Yep.
Yeah, it's.
So we both agree. We think BlizzCon's gone for good.
Yeah,
BlizzCon for good.
BlizzCon.
Yeah, and I won't miss it one bit.
No, I mean, no skin off my back.
Even for coverage purposes.
No, I've never even watched it.
All that ever happened from BlizzCon was people whining and complaining.
Yeah.
That was the end result of BlizzCon.
My most vivid BlizzCon memory is people losing their minds at how colorful Diablo 3 was.
Yeah, or the mobile...
Oh, the mobile Diablo
game.
Which still is... Did that ever come out?
It still hasn't come out, no.
Was it Diablo Immortal?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. After BlizzCon, it's just whiny people everywhere. So let's just get rid of it. I'm cool with that. It doesn't bother me one bit. So there you go. That's BlizzCon 2021 actually happened. They did the BlizzCon line.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they weren't just like. I'm surprised they weren't just like, well, we're just going to cancel the live thing and still do like a direct every year or whatever. But maybe they will. But to your point, you're probably right. It's probably not going to be called BlizzCon going forward, and that would be smart.
Just name it after an individual game.
Yeah.
Even the Diablo 2 remaster pretty much did that. Like the Blizzard, you still get like Blizzard presents at the very beginning when you load the game up, but like that logo's not there. The logo's not there in the store page. Normally you'd expect to see that Blizzard logo front and center on Diablo's chest, right? And it's not there anymore.
Yeah. Well, then Call of Duty presented by Call of Duty.
Presented by Call of Duty. Yeah, the Activision logo is like ring in the corner. It's like, hashtag Activision in like 10% visibility, like, transparency font like that. Yep.
They're trying to hide, that's for sure. We'll see how long it goes on. All right, it's time to go to our last topic. I knew we were going to do it. I knew we were going to make it, Matt. Our last topic of episode 276, we're going to talk about Nintendo Switch Online. We've actually talked about it, I think, 2 episodes in a row, but now it's out, and I actually used it and played it. Did you?
No, I'm not giving them money for that.
I figured at least you'd get the Genesis stuff, just for the Genesis stuff.
No, I have the Genesis stuff 5 times over.
I just figured your curiosity would get the best of you.
I watched videos of like tech comparisons and things like that. And also, the emulation sucks. So I'm not.
You think it sucks?
It's in comparison to what I can get on PC. Yeah. Or just play the general actual hard copies I own. I mean, I haven't really seen much, but nobody seems to care about the Genesis one. So
I thought the Genesis stuff was way better than the N64.
It probably is because Sega puts more effort into their emulators at this point. They didn't used to, but now they learned their lesson about accuracy.
Like the text in the Genesis stuff, razor sharp.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like anything.
Sega's gotten real good at that.
It looks great. Anything that's 2D in the N64 games looks like ass.
But I already have the Sega.
Looks like ass.
Yeah, I already have the Sega, Sonic's whatever collection on like 3 different platforms. I don't need. Yeah. I don't need more.
I just figured maybe out of curiosity. The first thing I would say
not for $30.
Well, the first thing I would say is I went to pay for this. I had to pay $32, and I have no idea why. I literally just renewed my Nintendo Switch Online base subscription like 2 weeks ago. It just automatically renewed and turned over. So this is $50. Why am I paying $32 instead of $30 for it? Why is that?
I don't know.
But that's what I had to pay. I don't know why. But so anyway, I paid it. I was like, I need to do this to cover it, to let people know whether it's worth spending the $30. And from my perspective, someone who was alive and a hardcore gamer when all these games came out, I would say no. Like, I feel like I just flushed $32 down a toilet. Mm-hmm. It's fine. Like
it's fine. I think it's fine if you just sort of vaguely remember these games and want to play them again. But like everything I've seen on like the YouTube videos and like the comparison stuff and the tech analysis, like the fog is rendered wrong in a lot of them. The frame rate is laughable. Like, I mean,
the games are crisper
for sure. But like, why does Mario Kart not run better? Like,
I don't know.
That's the whole point. And like the people I saw compare it because the same emulator being used for Mario 64 in the Super Mario collection that they did last year, and there's more lag on this. Like there's the jumping in it's only a few frames, but in like Zelda it's noticeable with the backflipping and stuff. The fog in Zelda is rendered wrong. Like the fog is supposed to be out, like kind of covering the way distance.
Yeah.
And in this version of Ocarina, like there's just fog everywhere. Like it's just sort of generally hazy,
covering everything.
Yeah, and people doubly don't know why because there are homebrew emulators on Switch that run Ocarina with the fog correct, and so it's not a performance thing.
I mean, the Ultra HLE runs it fine.
Right, all that stuff runs it better. And like that's kind of the problem, and that a lot of the tech analysis guys have said, and I agree with them, is like at bare minimum, if you're asking money for this, especially the amount of money they're asking, this should provide an equal experience to a free community made emulator, and it does not. Like you don't have to enhance everything. You don't have to like put texture packs and things or whatever. Like you don't need to do that, but it should be a baseline of as good as running it like vanilla on one of those emulators, and it isn't.
Oh no, this does not look as good as the Ultra HLE.
No,
not even close. And that's I'm talking about back running it on a Voodoo 2 card back in like 1998 or 2000. Like the 2D. Look at the bitmap.
Yeah,
look at how awful it looks. Like they haven't touched any of that stuff. That's why I'm telling you, like, the Genesis stuff looks pretty good. Like, I honestly feel like that stuff is better and more worthy of this than the N64 stuff. Now, the polygons, the textures, they are crisper.
Yeah, you can see that here.
Yeah.
Star Fox actually translated one of the best.
Yeah.
But then you got the online play, which is a disaster.
So, the online play, I thought there were just servers. And so I thought when I played Mario Kart 64, I could just select online play, and it would just match me with 3 other people. No, you can only play with your friends.
Yeah, and it's all peer-to-peer. And you're limited by whoever has the slowest connection, which is like, on a Switch, is the most nightmarish thing imaginable. Like, I've seen footage of Mario Tennis, which is just like the ball just freezes in midair while the slowest player kicks up.
Even if you've hardwired on the new Switch OLED...
You're slower.
It's slower than Wi-Fi. So I guess,
and look, if like they were charging an extra $5 or $10 per year for this, I wouldn't be that disappointed by it. But like an extra $30, and I know you're getting the DLC for Animal Crossing,
which I'll never play.
Which I'll never play. So like, so all you've got is this and a bunch of Genesis games I already own. No.
Yeah.
No.
I had not played a lot of those Genesis games for a long time, and boy, they are a lot more challenging than I remember.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I played Contra Hardcore, and I forgot that if you get hit once, you die.
Oh yeah,
you get hit once, you die.
That's named for a reason. Bloodlines is also arguably the hardest Castlevania.
Yeah, I didn't even try that yet. I tried probably like almost all the N64 stuff because there aren't that many, and then probably half of the Genesis stuff. And I do think the emulation on the Genesis stuff is better.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, again, Sega doesn't skimp on their Genesis emulation anymore, so I'm sure that's fine.
Yeah,
but again, for less than $30, you can get a great Genesis collection with more games in it on Steam.
Yeah.
Like, there's no value here.
Yeah. I started playing Winback, boy.
Oof.
I mean, I respect it because it was one of the first cover shooters.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed Winback back in the day.
But now, oh my gosh.
Yeah, look at how much it wanted to be Metal Gear Solid.
Well, also, it did. That's it. I mean, that's what this was.
Yeah.
It was Koei Tecmo. It was just Koei back then, trying to make Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't see it, but like the belt buckle that dude is wearing, like when he walks towards the camera, is like flickering on and off, and like it's like.
And again, that's accurate to the original game, but
yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's not that they changed it to make it that way.
Yeah, that's not an emulation flaw. That's just what Winback looks like. Yeah.
And I'll skip forward here a little bit to some of the Genesis stuff because I think I included way too much Winback in the B-roll for some reason. I think anything over 30 seconds was probably too much. But here you can see the collection. And Golden Axe, I had forgotten the controls to that. Contra Hardcore I played. What else did I play? I played Echo the Dolphin, and that was still therapeutic, I think. One thing that is cool about these is it does have like the
morphine. Look at that.
It does have the rewind feature.
Yeah, that's handy.
And here you can see it being used. You can actually like go frame by frame through rewinding the gameplay, which is pretty cool. And that happens for all this stuff, for all the Genesis stuff, all the N64 stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Musha.
But yeah, I guess I would say only hardcore Genesis fans should pay.
And hardcore Genesis fans already have these.
Have all of it. Yeah. It really is, as you like to say, what is it? A problem in search of a solution?
A solution in search of a problem.
Yeah. Or if you're just young and, if you're 12 or 13, do you think kids that age care about games like this?
No, I mean, I'm sure they'd play it once and, to be curious or to shut dad up, and that was about it, I mean, there's some really good games in the Genesis collection, but again, they're available other places for cheaper. And to own, not to subscribe.
This was the game I had the most fun with, Streets of Rage 2.
Streets of Rage 2 is great. This is one of Yuzo Koshiro's greatest soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, we talked about that not long ago. And I still enjoyed playing it.
There's a great, go look up, or maybe I'll just send you the link. There's a YouTube video that basically compares all the Streets of Rage songs to the dance songs they steal their riffs from, and like one of them stolen from like CNC Music Factory. Everybody and
everybody dance now.
Yeah, everybody dance now. There's another one that's yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a particular Mariah Carey song they steal from a lot. Like,
really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, there's a lot of stuff they take from.
But anyway, I think most people are going to watch this segment and they're going to ask me, Shane, should I pay the $30? And I would say absolutely not. I paid it last night, and I regret it. And I do have an N64 sitting out and all the hard copies of all these games in a closet very nearby. And these games, they do look better than
you have not noticed that move takes your life off yet.
Right, yeah. Yep. And they do look better, but not that much better.
No.
And
honestly, they look almost as good if you get one of those HDMI conversion kits.
Yeah. I think we were right. We were right. Like, it should have cost $5 or $10 for the year. And that would have...
And, without the DLC thing, it probably would.
Yeah. It might have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why bundle that in there?
Because they want more money out of you.
Shady crap. Mm-hmm. So, there you go. That's Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion. Maybe we'll come back. I mean, here's the other thing. They data mined it, and they found that there are 38 N64 games on the way and 52 Genesis games on the way.
That's a good number.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, the fog thing I mentioned, that doesn't happen on Ocarina on the Wii. Or on the GameCube version that they did that.
Or what about the 3DS version?
No, because that's a whole new game. That's not an emulation. But like the emulated versions on Wii, Wii U, and GameCube do not do that.
Yeah.
Like the emulation on it from 10, 15 years ago is better. What the hell?
It's bonkers, dude. Yep.
Further evidence they should have just kept the VC going.
Yeah. Yeah. Why did they kill it?
Get more money out of us?
They did, because...
Different architecture?
It worked, because I had a ton of games on the Virtual Console. I mean, those are just dust in the wind now, right?
Pretty much.
They're just gone.
Unless you turn your Wii U on again.
But, I mean, how long until that's gone?
Yeah.
And so here I am. I just spent $32 on these games that I already own again. Nintendo's really good at this shit, Matt.
They are.
Getting you to keep paying for stuff you already own.
Not today.
Well,
Not this time.
I jumped on the grenade for you this time. And for you guys. Don't spend the money. Wait until maybe these other 38 and 52 games come out. Maybe it'll be worth it then, but then that's going to depend on the selection. You're going to reach the law of diminishing returns because, especially with the N64, there just weren't that many great games for it.
And a lot of them are never going to be there.
Yeah, and because of licensing issues or whatever. So
you're never going to get GoldenEye.
Yep. I jumped on that grenade for you, people. So if you own a Switch and you were thinking about spending the
And you know what? If you did get GoldenEye, I bet
they
they charge you extra for it.
charge extra for GoldenEye?
Yeah.
Like an extra $5
Extra $5 for GoldenEye because they had to pay licensing fees for the Bond license or something.
To have the Bond theme in it. Anyway, don't do it. At the very least, wait until there's a lot more content.
Yeah, wait and see if they improve it. What else gets added?
It's also coming at a weird time of year. It's like if you're going to do this, put it out in the spring.
Right? Was this around the Q4? Well, was this around the time they launched the service?
Yeah, because I just renewed. Like 2 weeks ago.
Because I think that was the idea. Was like do it right around the time renewal happens.
Everyone's renewing. Yeah, and it worked for me. I mean, I paid like a sucker. And Vincent says, if you want the Animal Crossing DLC, yeah,
it's a better deal if you want that.
But I don't know. That DLC didn't seem like all that interesting to me.
Not to me. I mean, I'm sure it's interesting if you are into that with Animal Crossing. I mean, I know people that are super excited about that, but not for me.
Me either. Okay. It's time for Name That Game, people. It was pretty awesome that someone who won last week, who was sitting in Montreal when they won Name That Game, was here the next week to get the stickers in person and get the reward in person and bring us liquor.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome. I'm a little disappointed he did not leave the bottle.
He's got to sell that to people.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
You think he just walks around pouring it out for people?
Well, if you're gonna have people sample the product.
I mean, I would assume he has like a case here, right?
He might, but you don't know how much he's gonna need.
Just
joking.
I'll say this, though.
We don't need to get smashed on cream liquor.
I'll say this: it's pretty good.
It is good.
Like
really good.
Like cannonly being honest, he sells good liquor.
It's very good, and it's very holiday-ish. It's got some nutmeg and some cinnamon. It's very like a toasty by the fire kind of drink.
Yep.
And I believe he said it's the only black-owned cream liquor
in the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So support your fellow sifter.
Yeah.
And get his liquor.
Yeah.
It was good. We're not lying to you.
Cream
we would have lied while
LS.
he was here, but now that he's gone, we're being totally honest.
cream LS was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. LS Cream maybe.
No, the website's Cream LS.
Oh, the website. Yeah.
The name of the liquor is LS.
Yep. So there you go. Hook him up. It's time for Name That Game. Some of y'all's favorite part of GameFace every week. For those of you who have not participated, don't know what Name That Game is, it's a quiz show where you guys try to beat Matt to the punch. I give you 5 clues about a game. You try to name what the game is. Clues start out obtuse. They get more obvious as they go with the idea of somebody getting it, either Matt or you guys. Chat wins all ties. In fact, I give you guys like the benefit of the doubt, like a big benefit of the doubt. So if Matt answers it and you answer the same thing in the next like few seconds in the chat, you guys will get the victory. Last year he got it last week he got it on the third clue, second clue, second clue. Yeah, so I didn't do.
You know what he should have taken a bottle to give to Pactor.
That's actually a good.
So he could order a bunch of them for the party.
That's actually a good point. Never too late though. If the party happens, God, I hope so.
He said he'd send some. He might send some here, so he'll make sure he sends you one to give to Pactor because Pactor can spread the word about liquor.
He can.
Yeah.
And Pactor's wife will probably love it too.
Yeah.
And okay, we'll do that. Again, help out your fellow sifter if you can. All right, so here we go. Let me bring up the chat on the screen so everybody can see it. And let me get some of our promo going here. If you're listening to this show out on the wilds of the internet, go to patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. It would be awesome. And come on our live streams at twitch.tv/siftedgames and try to beat Matt at Name That Game. All right, are you guys ready? Here comes the first clue. If you need a pick-me-up, no game is better.
Mischief Makers.
Nope. Good one, though. Shake, 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 shake. If you need a pick-me-up, no game is better. Let's see if chat comes up with any ideas here. Gino Mike, I missed the one-time liquor is on Sifted. Sips his Jack and Coke. Wow, you're sipping Jack and Coke? Well, I was about to make fun of him for drinking on a Wednesday, and then I realized that I just drank on a Wednesday at 1 in the afternoon. So.
Yeah, at work.
At work. Portal, no. Death Stranding, no. Pikmin, no. And trust me, I try not to give you a clue that will help you get it on the first clue because I feel like I fail it if that happens. Banjo-Kazooie, no. All right, we'll take one more guess, and then we'll move on to the second clue. If you need to pick me up, no game is better. I don't know how Banjo comes into that. Blast Core, no, but I would like to do Blast Core for.
Blast Core was the other one that came to mind.
Oh, really? I would like to use Blast Core in a future Name That Game, so keep that in mind. Wario WATR, WarioWare maybe? No. Okay, here comes the second clue. because nobody's getting it. I was such a hit that I had a couple offspring. I was such a hit that I had a couple
Crazy
offspring.
Taxi.
You got it.
Yeah.
No, somebody else got it. Sneaky got it. Sneaky got it first. Awesome. Awesome, dude. I'm glad that you won, man. You're great on our chat. You're always engaged. You're always asking great questions. I love it when I see people like you win. And Sneaky got it. I didn't think that the Offspring would be such a dead giveaway.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know people associate that game with that.
When you say Crazy Taxi, I think, yeah. Like, that's just those two damn songs over and over again.
Yeah. Great job, Sneaky. Congrats, man. And thanks for showing up every week to watch the show on the stream. You always ask great questions, and you're always engaged. And I think most people on the chat like you. Seems like it. So anyway, you got it with Clue 1. I didn't see that. Emperor Dread. Yeah. So good job, Sneaky. Send me a DM. You can do it here on Twitch. Or if you're a member of Sifted.net, and you better be, you can DM me at Shane there. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at Sifted Games, or I am at Dinfire. Either way, send us your full address and your real name, and I won't share it with anybody. But send me your real name, your full address. Make sure you include everything, like your postal code. And if you have a province, make sure you include it. Make sure it's the whole thing. Because we're trying to make this easy. I don't have to keep tracking people down to get addresses. Most of you guys have been great at it, but not everybody has. And just for fun and posterity's sake, I'll go through the last few clues that I had for you guys. I began my life in the arcade before moving to a more thoughtful console. It's thinking. Remember, that was a Dreamcast tagline. My concept has since been replaced by an app. Mm-hmm. And then the final clue, and if people didn't get, I knew people would get it because if they Googled this, it would have pulled it up. Mr. T and Gary Busey should have been part of the cast. Do you know what that comes from?
Well, Mr. T and Gary Busey? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
They both starred in a movie called DC Cab.
Oh, okay.
And if you just Google Mr. T and Gary Busey, like the third result is DC Cab. And I knew that would have given it away. So sometimes I do tailor the clues to make sure like they win.
Yeah, I must have freaked out a little bit when I started bringing up Space Taxi.
Yeah, a little bit. I was getting a little on edge there. But great job, Sneaky, Solid Snake. Again, thanks for always being on the stream. And you showed up on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday. Also, by the way, everyone should watch DC Cab. It is hilarious. Even to this day, it is still hilarious. For whatever reason, when I was a kid, it was one of those movies that I ended up watching like over and over and over again. And it was Gary Busey before he became insane.
Right.
When he was actually like an actor and like a normal guy who acted crazy instead of just was crazy. But it's very funny. There's a bunch of other actors in it too. Yeah. I recommend it, even though it's from like 1983 or 84, I think it was. It's an old film. But anyway, congratulations, Sneaky. Thanks for everyone else for playing. Good job, Matt. I mean, you guessed it in the second clue. That was impressive, too. But by the time I turned over, there's actually a couple people who would guess Crazy Taxi. But then you wonder if they saw Sneaky and they're like, oh, yeah, that's it. And then they typed it in. So anyway, look at that. I think I wrapped the show right on time.
Just about.
I didn't think we were going to do it. And then we did it. Let's see. If you're listening to this show out on all the podcast services, and the show is on all the podcast services, so if you're used to watching the show on YouTube and you would rather just hear the audio, and I know if you're not like a YouTube Plus subscriber, then you can't just listen to stuff because it'll close it out. You can listen to the show on all the podcast services, and it goes up on, well, this week it'll go up on Monday at noon, but when we do the show on Tuesdays, it goes up on Sunday at noon on all of them. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify. It's all out there. And please, if you can't afford to help us or you just don't want to help us because you're a jerk, drop us a review on those podcast services. It makes a big difference. Even if you're just a fan who's a patron or you're watching on YouTube or whatever, if you go to those podcast services and drop us a review, it makes a huge difference in rankings. So we'd really appreciate that, particularly from people who can't afford to help us financially. If you can't afford to help us, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. And you can pledge anything you want. You can give us just $1 if you just want to help us buy us a cup of coffee every month. Or you can pledge $1 million per month if you're a freaking billionaire. And there seems to be a lot more of those these days. So you can go there and help us however you can. Yeah. And every dollar makes a difference to us. Our Patreon is not very large. And I see every single person. I hate to say this because I don't want to make people feel guilty. But I see every single thing you do. I see every time one of you guys bump it up $1 or you drop $1 or you completely stop pledging. Patreon lets us see all that stuff. And I have noticed some of you guys have bumped up your pledges over the last few weeks here to try to help us because our Patreon's really low right now. And I really, really appreciate that. You guys are the best. You guys have always been the best. You're the best fans. And we really appreciate it. You should follow all of us and Sifted on Twitter. I'm at Dinfire. Matt is at MKyle. That's MKEIL. And Sifted is at Sifted Games. We will be back Tuesday next week to our normal time. I think we're going to have, let's see, Riders Republic, Age of Empires 4. I think I may be missing one, too.
I'm going to play Encryption, so you're just going to have to deal with that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put it in the rundown.
That's one of the big indie darlings. You're going to see that in the Game of the Year conversations.
Okay. We'll have it in the
Maybe not Game of the Year, but you're going to see it in the awards season.
So best indie game of the year stuff
yeah, it's
like
gonna
that.
it's going to be in that conversation.
He actually pitched me on that game for this week's episode, and I turned it down.
So we're not letting this fall down the Sable hole.
Okay. All right. That's right. Sable. We never did cover Sable afterwards.
Yeah.
That's right.
You just don't want to have to draw it.
Oh, I forgot all about that. I do want to draw it, actually. Maybe we'll bring that back. It may be too late now. But anyway, thanks for everyone for tuning in on a Wednesday when you used to come in on Tuesday. If you want to watch the show live, other than this week, we're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. So on behalf of Matt and Steve, who's now gone, I'm Shane. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.